There we go. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Education, Energy, the Environment, and I always say, and Elections Committee. I am Cheryl Kagan. I'm very proud to be the vice chair here. The chair is in the Finance Committee, and we'll return in a little bit, but we are going to get started. Before we do, I'm just going to ask you if you would silence anything that makes distracting noises. And I want to remind all the witnesses that the members of this committee are super smart, but we don't know every acronym. So if you want to teach us about an issue that you're passionate about, try not to use alphabet soup so that we're confused. So with that, we are really happy that you're here, and we're kicking off today with the wonderful Senator Guile. And we are starting with, whoops, where's my glasses? We are starting with Senate Bill 685, Local School Systems, Sexual Abuse and Sexual Misconduct, Response Policy and After Action Review. Joining Senator Guile at the table should be Megan Businger, Catherine Juhas, and Lisa Jordan, who is such an icon in Annapolis. Senator Guile, great to have you back. You may begin your testimony.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair and members of the committee. For the record, Senator Dawn Guile, District 33, here to present Senate Bill 685. This bill is personal for me. It arises from a deeply painful experience in my community involving allegations of sexual misconduct at an elementary school my children attended and still attend. For many families, schools are places of trust where we send our children every day believing that they will be safe, supported, and cared for. When that trust is shaken, the impact is felt not just by the students involved, but by parents, educators, and the entire community. In moments like that, one of the most important things a system can do is respond clearly, thoughtfully, and transparently so that trust can begin to be rebuilt. Senate Bill 685 is not about relitigating a case and is not about assigning blame. Thankfully, situations like this are rare, and our public schools are filled with dedicated teachers, staff, and administrators who care deeply about the students they serve. But when something serious does occur, it is important that schools, families, and investigators have clear expectations and consistent processes in place. What that experience, the one that our community experienced, made clear is that when serious allegations do arise, school systems, families, and law enforcement are often navigating incredibly complex situations without clear, consistent statewide standards. Different school systems may handle these situations in different ways, and families are often left unsure about what to expect. Senate Bill 685 is designed to establish a clear statewide framework for how schools respond when credible allegations of sexual abuse arise, one that helps protect students, inform families, and help communities regain confidence in how these situations are handled. At the outset, I want to thank the many stakeholders who engaged with us, especially over the last several days, including MABE, MSEA, many others. There is testimony that you may see, written testimony that was submitted by these various organizations. We've been working with them on some amendments, and I think we're in a really great place now on it. So there's maybe some things in there that you may see in the bill folder have been some concerns that that were raised by them that we have been working, and I think we're at a place now where we've worked to address. I do want to give a special thanks to Stacy here, who has been just extraordinarily helpful in getting us to a place of getting some great amendments. Throughout these discussions, we identified a path forward that preserves the bill's core goals while bringing together the appropriate agencies and subject matter experts to develop the operational policies. So this bill will be amended to simplify its structure and place several operational components under a model policy to be developed by the Maryland State Department of Education. Under this approach, MSDE would work in partnership with key agencies and experts, including the Maryland Center for School Safety and other child-serving organizations, to develop and implement that policy. The statute would establish minimum expectations while allowing subject matter experts and local boards to determine the most effective implementation. That policy framework would address several key areas. First, parental notification. The policy would establish a communication plan for notifying parents when sexual abuse allegations arise, including guidance on timing and the type of information that can be shared while preserving the integrity of an investigation and due process. Second, after-action reviews. Following serious incidents, school systems would conduct structured reviews of their response. These reviews help identify procedural gaps, improve coordination with partners, and strengthen future responses. Third, resources and support for families in the aftermath of an incident. When something serious happens in a school community, families need clear information and meaningful support. The policy that would be developed by MSDE would help ensure that parents have access to counseling resources and guidance about available supports and help them navigate the difficult conversations that often follow. Providing that support is an important part of helping families and communities begin to rebuild trust. Finally, record retention. In the one recent case mentioned in my district, investigators encountered an automatic email deletion policy at the school that erased messages after 30 days. As a result, potentially important communications that could have helped establish a clear timeline of events, including possible warning signs or other patterns of concern, were no longer available. SB 685 addresses that gap by establishing a minimum record retention baseline of 1 year. Preserving these records can help investigators reconstruct timelines, identify warning signs, and ensure that relevant information is available when allegations are investigated. Taken together, these policies are designed to provide clarity for schools and transparency for families, both of which are essential to rebuilding trust when something difficult happens in a school community. Finally, Madam Vice Chair, I just wanted to thank my legislative director, Mike Cardozo, for his tireless work in bringing stakeholders together. He's been working so hard on bringing together different perspectives. I'm also grateful for my constituents who are next give their testimony and background, as well as Lisa Jordan, her wonderful insight as well. So, and with that, colleagues, I respectfully request a favorable report.
Thank you so much, Senator Guile. Would you like to start with your constituents or with Lisa Jordan?
Madam Vice Chair. Yeah.
Okay.
Megan Businger.
Megan, please begin. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Kagan and members of the committee. My name is Megan Businger, and I'm here in support of SB 685. Public speaking is completely out of my comfort zone. But as I wrote to the Maryland State Board of Education in September 2024, we need to see a process in place for if this ever happens again. Parents need to be informed and supported. We need access to resources and help. I'm here today to express my support for Senator Giles' bill and my commitment to advancing this necessary change. My son was in the 3rd grade classroom when the alleged sexual abuse occurred. I didn't hear about it from the school. That email didn't come for weeks. I heard about it from another parent. Within hours, texts and emails were flying, some accurate, some not. Fear and confusion spread quickly. As a parent, my first instinct was, I have to protect my child. I have to make sure he's okay. But how do you ask a 9-year-old boy those kinds of questions? How do you help him process something so serious? These conversations at home became harder as the weeks went on. My son struggled. He questioned whether adults he trusted were safe. He felt guilt for not protecting his classmates. He came into our room at night with questions no child should have to ask. And those conversations happen regardless of how the legal case ultimately concluded. And that's what I want to emphasize. Providing parents with timely information and access to counseling resources is not a statement of guilt. It is not a judgment about the accused. It is an acknowledgement that when a teacher is removed under serious allegations, children are impacted immediately. Parents need guidance. We need evidence-based resources, and we need clarity. Due process matters, but so does the emotional well-being of the students sitting in those classrooms. Senate Bill 685 ensures that if this ever happens again, families won't be left navigating fear and confusion alone. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Vice Chair and members of the committee, my name is Catherine Uhas, and I'm testifying in support of Senate Bill 685. In 2024, on an otherwise unremarkable day, I received an email from my daughter's school that one of her teachers would be indefinitely out of the classroom and a long-term substitute would be in place. No one knew anything about why the teacher would be unavailable until a few weeks later, when the news that they had been removed due to credible allegations of sexual assault spread like wildfire through our community. Panicked parents were scrambling for information on a Friday afternoon, desperate for support and guidance about how this news would affect our children. Over the weekend, we reassured one another that surely the school would release an update on Monday morning. Unfortunately, that update never came. Parents were left in the dark about how to speak with their children, what support or resources might be available to help their families, and how to discuss the circumstances with other parents within the school who were not even aware that allegations had been made. The lack of readily available information made a horrific situation worse, traumatizing our entire community and eroding trust between families and the school. As time went on, resources were shared from parent to parent, including lists of trauma-certified therapists and what to do if a child discloses abuse. These resources could have been shared much more quickly and efficiently if they had been distributed publicly instead of being limited to word of mouth. SB 685 is the roadmap we desperately needed. Had this bill been in place, it would have made a significant difference for my family and so many others. In the event of credible allegations, communicating clear, timely information about what steps are being taken and which resources are available is essential and should not vary from one family to the next or even one school to the next. Mandating an after-action report to review what could be done better in the future ensures that the system continues to improve and is aligned with the Maryland State Board of Education's mission to advocate for continuous improvement of Maryland's educational system. SB 685 prioritizes system-wide transparency and support, which were the two things most lacking in our community in the aftermath of the allegations, and I fervently hope that you will support this bill. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Lisa Jordan with the Maryland Coalition Against Sexual Assault. The Coalition Against Sexual Assault is the coalition of all of the rape crisis centers across the state of Maryland, serving every jurisdiction in the state. And as you've really already heard, Senate Bill 685 creates a system that allows the needs of parents and students to be addressed in the aftermath of sexual misconduct and abuse. And this committee knows that abuse thrives on secrecy. And creating a system that's transparent helps to create a culture that discourages further abuse, as well as supporting the parents. Without strong systems in place to share information and resources, gossip and faulty advice can really take over. I want to especially say that I appreciate Senator Guile, her staff, and our colleagues in the education field for being willing to work together and create a system that still gives them authority over their own field, their own schools, but also agrees that they need to do something. We need to have a system in place. And I remain absolutely appalled that these parents were left without resources when, as you all know, Maryland pays for resources. Maryland has resources. We have child advocacy centers that help with forensic exams for children. We have rape crisis centers that have access to trauma-informed counselors that could have helped these parents. We have the Sexual Assault Legal Institute, a nationally recognized legal services program that could have helped explain to these parents what is happening in that criminal court. It is just criminal that we did not provide the support these parents needed. And I really appreciate Senator Guile and especially Ms. Businger and Ms. Juhas for being here today, sharing their story and trying to make a difference out of this tragedy. So we urge a favorable report for Senate Bill 685.
Thank you all for your testimony. We're really glad that you're here. Colleagues, do you have questions? These are the only witnesses for this bill. There are any questions of Senator Guile or the other witnesses? Senator Brooks, please.
Thanks, Senator Guile for the bill. Quick question. There, I was looking at the letter of information from Maryland State Education Association, and so, but I did hear you state that
we're on the same page now.
Yeah, you all are? Okay.
Yeah, they had some concerns with the bill as originally drafted,
Right.
and we've met, we understand some of the concerns that they have had about it, and so we've been working on amendments, and we're in a good place now where we would have some aspects of the components of the bill go into a requirement that MSDE develop a model policy with those stakeholders all involved so that we do have consistency across notification, after action review,
Right.
Providing resources and support. But in short, we've addressed, I think, some of those concerns, and that's and we're always, continue to have those conversations. If any of them, I don't want to necessarily speak with them, but
Right.
but I can say that we've addressed some of those concerns.
Okay, and that's also the case with PSOB.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yes,
Okay,
Senator.
good enough.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't want to leave you more work, so we're trying to do what we can to get that work done for you. So
Okay.
thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Brooks. I see no other lights on from colleagues, so Senator Guile, wonderful witnesses. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your testimony and your courage.
Thank you very
We look
much.
forward to getting amendments for the committee.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Senator Guile. That completes the hearing on Senate Bill 685. Next up is going to be our wonderful colleague, Senator Carrozza, Senate Bill 709, Education, Purple Star Programs and Purple Star Colleges Program. And with her on the dais is going to be my constituent, Lynn Nash, if she's here. Lynn, do I see you?
Is she virtual?
She now is virtual. Thank you so much. Okay, so we look forward to hearing from Lynn and from you. She's not here yet. Okay, Senator Carrozza, why don't you kick us off?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair and members of the esteemed Senate Education, Energy, and Environment Committee. And I'm here, Senator Mary Beth Carrozza from Maryland's coast, Worcester, Wycomico, and Somerset counties. And I am here to present Senate Bill 709, the Purple Star Schools Program, and this Purple Star Colleges Program, and ask you all for a favorable report. And I want to start by thanking my friend and a leader in this area, Senator Simon Ayer, for his leadership in prioritizing the inclusion of institutions of higher education in the Purple Heart School Program. And I also want to thank the co-sponsors of this legislation, Senators Brooks, Harris, and Watson, and also, of course, Senator Simon Ayer. And this important legislation would simply expand the current Purple Star program to include institutions of higher education. And I would like to make the committee aware that the cross-file House Bill 623 unanimously passed the House on February 26 and is now with us. I especially appreciate that in sponsoring this legislation that I represent 3 institutions of higher education: Salisbury University, University of Maryland Eastern Shore, and Warwick Community College, all that have very active a community of veterans and military families, and that these institutions also have very active veterans programs. And just a little bit of background, Madam Vice Chair, to remind the committee that the Maryland Purple Star Program is a state-sponsored K-12 initiative designed to recognize and support schools that excel in providing resources and a very welcoming environment for students from military families. The program is completely voluntary, and it was established back in 2024, House Bill 1026 and Senate Bill 707, which unanimously passed the Maryland General Assembly. I think that there's general agreement, looking at the veterans on this committee and the support from this committee, that students whose families serve our nation in the military have a distinct set of needs, and they require different types of support to succeed. The Purple Star program recognizes the schools that provide more services for our veterans and service members and their families. To earn the Purple Star designation, a school must have a dedicated military liaison, provide accessible digital resources, and offer a student-led transition program, and ensure that staff are trained to meet the unique needs of our military families. I wanted to point out that the Maryland State Department of Education was able to implement the Purple Star K-12 program with existing resources and no additional staffing. Other states, such as Ohio, Indiana, and Florida, have implemented the Purple Star Colleges program with no additional costs, and some have used a voluntary commission of educators to review applications. And I have included the Ohio Department of Higher Education's application in your packets. So again, to my colleagues, Senate Bill 709 just would simply extend the Purple Star program to institutions of higher education that provide similar support to military-connected students. And I wanted to point out, since one of the chairs is here, we have the support of the Maryland General Assembly Veterans Caucus, the Maryland Military Coalition, the University Systems of Maryland, including Salisbury University and University of Maryland Eastern Shore. And there were some representatives here earlier from Salisbury University. If they're still here, if they could stand, that they also are here in support of the bill as well, and they were recognized on the Senate floor earlier. It's also supported by the Maryland Independent College and University Association, and also, in addition, again, since it's in my district, not only do we have Salisbury University in attendance today, University of Maryland Eastern Shore submitted a separate letter of support along with the UMS support. And I was in touch with Dr. Casey from Warwick Community College, and she was also very supportive of the bill and would have been here in person, but is out of town. So again, I thank you for your kind attention, and again, want to thank Senator Simonaire for his leadership on this bill. And I respectfully request a favorable and swift report of Senate Bill 709. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Carrozza. And
This is
Giuseppe?
Giuseppe.
Giuseppe Mellinger. Welcome back. It's nice to have you here.
It's good to see you again. Good afternoon, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Giuseppe Mellinger. Many of you know me as Senator Simonaire's intern, but I'm also a contracted Army ROTC cadet at Loyola University, Maryland, a school that proudly supports military-connected students. And I'm here today to testify in support of Senate Bill 709, why this matters to me. As a son of an Iraq War veteran and a service member myself, I've seen how challenging it can be for service members and their families to navigate higher education. Many military-connected students relocate frequently, often moving between states and even across the country. Every move means starting over with new systems and new requirements. For me personally, I know a close friend of my battalion who had to leave a state school due to complications with his credits after moving here from California, complications that could have been avoided with clearer support. A consistent standard across participating colleges would help prevent situations like that by giving military-connected students a reliable point of contact and a smoother path forward wherever they go. At Loyola, I'm fortunate to have strong support systems, but I also know many military-connected students whose experiences really depend on the campus they attend. Some colleges have excellent support. Some have almost none. That inconsistency makes an already difficult transition even harder. Senate Bill 709 addresses that gap. Having dedicated staff and resources at every participating college will give military-connected students a clear place to turn to, make transitions smoother, and prevent students from slipping through the cracks. Senate Bill 709 ensures every Purple Star campus offers that same consistent support. For these reasons, I respectfully urge a favorable report on Senate Bill 709, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Giuseppe, for your service with Senator Simonaire, for your service to our country, and for your service to Senator Carrozza's bill. Unfortunately, Lynn Nash is not in the Zoom room, so we can't hear her testimony. So these are our two witnesses. Are there any questions? Or Senator Simonaire, you're good? Okay. I see no questions, so I think you guys did a great job. That completes the hearing on Senate Bill 709. Thank you both. Next bill is Senate Bill 845, which is also a Senator Carrozza bill. Colleagues, just to flag, Senator Carrozza's Chief of Staff, Molly O'Hara, handed out two-page document for us, so that will go on this bill as well. This is Maryland Voter Registration List Accuracy and Integrity Act, and she is the only witness, it appears, other than that which has been submitted and is available in our documents. Senator Carrozza, all yours.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair and members of the esteemed Senate EEE Committee. For the record again, Senator Mary Beth Carrozza from Maryland's Coast, District 38. And I wanted to share with you, Madam Vice Chair and members, my approach to this legislation, Senate Bill 845, the Maryland Voter Registration List Accuracy and Integrity Act, as amended. And I want to first acknowledge and appreciate the willingness of State Board of Elections Administrator Jared Demarinis and our own counsel, Stacy Goodman, to work with me to amending Senate Bill 845 to focus specifically on an area that I believe we all can agree should be strengthened in the removal of deceased Maryland voters off the Maryland State Voter Registration List. I wanted to point out that this bill, the intention is to improve the current process and timeline for ensuring that deceased Maryland voters, once confirmed, are removed from the statewide voter registration list. And I know that Madam Chair knows this as well as the members of the committee, but to again remind people that local boards of elections already are required to remove deceased voters once the board receives a report of the death from an official government agency. This legislation would require the Maryland Department of Health to broaden the report sent to the State Board of Elections, and again, this was at the suggestion of the state administrator, including those who identified as out-of-state residents but are Maryland residents and who were reported deceased outside the state but identified as Maryland residents. If the State Board of Election determines that a local board is not in compliance with the timely removal of confirmed deceased voters, the local board must develop a corrective action plan and undergo mandatory training of staff. And over the course of the interim, I met with some of my constituents and other individuals involved with looking at our voter lists. And they brought reports of inaccuracies. And when we sat down and looked at it, I followed up with meeting with them, also meeting with others on it. I thought that one area to focus on, kind of the low-hanging fruit, Madam Vice Chair, was to really just kind of make sure that our deceased voters are removed from the voter rolls in a timely fashion, but of course, once those reports are confirmed. And that's why this bill is so narrow in its focus. I think we can all agree that election officials have an affirmative duty to maintain the accuracy of voter rolls. And the effort to work with local elected officials and the State Board of Election is a nonpartisan effort to really try to increase the trust in Maryland's election system. And as I mentioned, working with constituents and others to try to increase the accuracy of Maryland voter rolls did become a priority of mine. I am not the expert that you are, Madam Vice Chair, which is why I tried to really kind of focus in this one narrow area. I believe that, and I believe we can all agree that our Maryland State Voter Registration Database is considered critical infrastructure, and that we do have to maintain that system with a keen eye on vulnerabilities and potential threats. I wanted to acknowledge that voter rolls are a dynamic system, so this concern isn't about the inaccuracies at any given moment, but rather trying to look at ways to improve the current system. And again, I want to really recognize constituents and others that have made an effort to share data with us, information regarding inaccuracies that we have taken to the Maryland State Board of Elections, and to ask these different individuals and our own State Board of Elections of recommendations to continue to improve the current system. And that's where I'm trying to present this in a way that this isn't about relitigating any past elections. It's not about election denials. It's about our current system, ways to improve the accuracy. And this was just a very, very small step, taking a good faith effort to improve the process for removing confirmed deceased voters from the Maryland voter registration list. Again, I think we can all agree that the voter rolls, accurate voter rolls, are essential to fair, transparent, and secure elections. And again, I I present this bill to the committee, knowing that the expertise that is here and with the intention of making a small improvement to improve our voter rolls in the state of Maryland. And I request a favorable report for Senate Bill 845. And I wanted to make sure, I saw there was some opposition testimony, but I believe that was, they had not seen the amended bill, which is before you, which again further narrows the bill. So did want to share the amended reprint version of the bill with you. And with that, I ask for a favorable report.
Thank you, Senator Carrozza. Questions on this bill? Senator, I'll just ask a quick question. As you know, Maryland was a founding member of ERIC, the Electronic Registration Information Center, which shares information about dead folks across state lines and stuff. Would this supplement or supplant, or how do you see, is ERIC falling down in the job, or how do you see that? So
when I met with Jared Demarinis about this bill, and we were talking about the changes to the bill, and I turned to him and I said, well, how do you think we could improve? And he specifically brought up this. He said in this one area we have a weak link, and he specifically provided the language where it states the out of state and the deceased Maryland voters that identify as Maryland residents. So he actually provided that language and said that would broaden, it would broaden the report that is currently being provided to the State Board of Elections.
Thank you, Senator Carrozza. Senator Brooks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Carrozza, what safeguards does 845 put in place to ensure if the voters are mistakenly removed, and that they are what mechanism?
They cannot be removed unless there's a confirmed government report. So that question might have been on the old bill, but they cannot be they're not removed unless they have that confirmed report.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Chair.
I see no other questions. So, Senator Carrozza, I think your work is done in that part. Oh, sorry. You have one more bill. Okay, that completes the bill hearing on Senate Bill 709. And thank you, Lamoria, for making sure that we're all on point. Senate Bill 903 is up next. Education, Engagement Policies and School Compact, Maryland Public Education Parental Partnership Act. Senator Carrozza, it appears that you are the only witness once again, and you may begin your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, and thank you, members of my esteemed committee. For the record, Senator Mary Beth Carrozza, representing District 38, Maryland's Coast. And I wanted to preface this on an area, again, that I think all of us have general agreement on, that when there are opportunities to strengthen parental involvement and participation, that we should pursue those recommendations, and this bill is being presented in the spirit of doing just that. This is Senate Bill 903. It's the Maryland Public Education Parental Partnership Act, and I'm asking for a favorable report. And I want to give a little bit of background because this legislation represents I believe, a significant advancement in educational equity and transparency because it establishes a statewide framework for parental engagement and the creation of parent-school compacts. Now, again, and trying to connect the pieces of what's required by federal law and what we have in state law. By way of background, the federal ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, is a bipartisan measure signed by President Barack Obama in 2015, and it required schools receiving Title I funds to develop parent-school compacts, which have been a cornerstone of student success for our most vulnerable populations. ESSA, again, the Every Student Succeeds Act, recognizes that gaps in educational opportunity and achievement are only remedied when those closest to the affected students, parents, families, and communities are driving decision-making. This bill, Senate Bill 903, takes a common-sense approach and expands these same protections and rights to every student in Maryland. The right to transparency, clear expectations, and a formal partnership with one school should not be determined by a school status or zip code. SB 903 would ensure that all parents, regardless of the average income of a school student's body, are recognized as essential stakeholders in the education process. I also wanted to tie this, Madam Vice Chair, to the blueprint. It would support the community school model as outlined in the blueprint for Maryland's future. And Education Article 9.9-101 states that providing family and community engagement and supports, including informing parents of academic course offerings, language classes, workforce development training, opportunities for children, and available social services, as well as educating families on how to monitor a child's learning. And that's all directly from the blueprint. So this is included in the wraparound services which are required by the community schools. So Senate Bill 903 would provide a standardized mechanism to meet this statutory requirement through a formal documented pathway for communication. The Parent-School Compact would outline how parents, students, and school staff would share the responsibility for improving student achievement and would describe how parents and teachers would communicate. I provided a fair amount of information from the Harvard Graduate School of Education about the years of research revealing the benefits of schools actively partnering with families that leads to student performance and strong outcomes. I also wanted to make the case that this legislation is a proven link to educational outcomes. The parental partnership described in this bill is not merely an informality. It is evidence-based, an evidence-based strategy for improving student performance. And again, I've outlined that academic performance improves, absenteeism decreases, equal opportunity is realized through these compacts. And again, this recognizes that a child's education is most effective when it is a shared journey. So if we adopt the rigorous engagement standards of Title I and the collaborative framework of community schools, this legislation ensures that every Maryland family, beyond the Title I families, has a seat at the table. And you know, I've thought about when I saw the initial opposition testimony from the Maryland Association of Boards of Education, it actually took me a little bit by surprise, and I contacted them about that and asked them how we could work together on this, because I did have a conversation with Dr. Joshua Michael, our State Board of Education chair, when I showed him the legislation and said, you know, this is an opportunity to take these parental compacts that are already required under Title I in Maryland and basically, you know, extend that to all students. He was open to that conversation, and I asked him how we could work together on this legislation. When I did follow up and contacted MABE about their opposition testimony, they did indicate that they would be willing to work with us on the legislation. So again, I think you all know from us serving together that I have been consistent as you all are around you know, this table, that we look for opportunities for meaningful and early involvement of our parents, and not just to check a list. And one of the reasons I was really excited about introducing this, because I was different proposals came my way to strengthen parental involvement and participation, but the fact that this infrastructure was already in place and working and has had success was reassuring to me. And so with that, I present to you Senate Bill 903 and ask to work with the committee for a favorable report. Thank you.
Rosa, Senator Brooks?
Thank you. Thanks for the bill, Senator. What is the fiscal note on this bill?
It really wasn't raised as an issue.
No, it's zero. They can do it with existing
Right,
resources,
yeah.
so I just,
So-
thank you.
Yeah,
Great
just
bill.
wanted-
Okay.
Okay, I see no other colleagues with questions. That completes the hearing, Senator Croza, on Senate Bill 903. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your.
Next up, we have Senator Love with Senate Bill 659. Senator Love will be joined by my old friend and former delegate, Gareth Murray, Alan Hackey, Catherine Dangle, and we do have other witnesses.
It's okay. Do you want me up there?
It's your choice. You may be at the dais or on the
Whatever
panel.
you would like, Madam Chair.
We are delighted to have you here, wherever location.
Okay.
So thank you all for being here. And Senator Love, the name of the bill is Pre-Kindergarten Programs and Primary and Secondary Schools, Student Privacy Policy Requirements and Discrimination Reporting. Welcome back. You may begin your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair, colleagues on EEE. It's nice to be back in front of you and talking about something that isn't PFAS. So I'm here today, Senator Sarah Love from District 16 in Montgomery County, to present to you SB 659. This bill seeks to strengthen student privacy protections and anti-discrimination policies for students in Maryland's non-public schools. Currently, student privacy policy and discrimination reporting requirements, differ between Maryland's public and non-public schools. And within that, there's those non-public that accept state funding and those that do not. And by aligning certain privacy and discrimination policies between public and non-public schools, the state can better protect students from victimization and inequity in these areas. The request for this legislation came from a constituent, a parent whose child went through a very awful experience. And when he pursued various avenues to address violations of his child's privacy and of discrimination, he found that certain protections were unavailable to the family. And you will hear more from him and from his family later. This bill does two things. First, it requires independent primary and secondary schools that do not take state money to protect the privacy of students' personal information by developing written policies and procedures, including a formal policy statement. This would put them in line with those who are already required so those public and independent schools that accept state funds, they're already required to do that. The second thing it does is expand current anti-discrimination certificate reporting requirements to mandate these non-public schools report to the Maryland State Department of Education annually the number of discrimination complaints on the grounds of race, ethnicity, color, religion, sex, age, national origin, marital status, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability, along with other factual data. It also obligates MSDE to submit a report on this information to the governor and the Maryland General Assembly each year. This requirement will help protect Maryland families and their students in non-public schools from privacy violations and acts of discrimination. I do want to note one thing. We intend this bill only to affect those non-public independent schools. It includes public schools in the drafting. It doesn't change anything about public schools. What is in here already is what is in regs. And the drafter, in conversations with the drafter, we understand that they thought it would be a little bit odd to have one category of schools that was in statute and one category of schools that was in regs, so they put everything in the statute. But this changes in no way the rules that apply to our public schools right now. So with that clarification and opening, I'd like to turn it over to my panel. Thank you for your attention, and I respectfully request a favorable report.
Thank you, Senator Love. Do you have an order in which you'd like your panel to
I do. I would
speak?
like Mr. Hackey to go first.
Okay, Mr. Hackey, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Welcome, and do I just start?
Yes.
Welcome, and thank you for hearing me today. My name is Alan Hackey, and I'm the parent of Jenna Hackey. Oh, can you hear me? Oh, my apologies. Okay. All right. My name is Alan Hackey, and I'm the parent of Jenna Hackey, a beautiful 15-year-old. I watched her life fall apart 2.5 years ago, not because of anything she did, but because the school she was at and the adults we trusted to protect her decided that she was no longer a desirable student and didn't fit into their brand. The school doxed my daughter, interrogated her, and criminalized her behavior for activities that were acceptable to white and Asian students. Her privacy was violated multiple times in a campaign that was meant to punish her and push her out of the school. This isn't just about my daughter and what she did. We've spoken to many other Muslim students who were also pushed out of that same school that same time period. And in the process, we've established a support group with many African Americans. Several have made it today. Many others are too terrified to come in because the way the school does their behavior, they build something against your kids, so if you speak up, you're afraid they're gonna ruin their future. A child's basic human right should not depend on whether their school takes state or federal funding. Their safety and innocence should not stop at a private property line. Give these children the protection they need. In Maryland, no institution should be above the law. No one should be able to discriminate against children just because of their race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, and all the other stuff that Senator Love has said. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hackey. Appreciate your sharing the story. Delegate Murray.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for Senator Love's bill. And basically, some folks would say I don't have a dog in the fight because I don't have children in the school system anymore. However, this is a community effort. When the Hackey family came to me, and they're very good friends of mine, I felt that it was important for us to get involved simply because wrong is wrong and right is right. Children should not have to go through what his children went through. It makes no sense. Rights were violated, confidentiality was breached. And when we talked to an attorney, the attorney said it would cost so much to go up against the school because they have a good war chest. And so the bill simply, I think, when we met with Senator Love, and she understood what was going on, the bill simply attempts to create a safer environment for the children and to give parents the ability to express what they feel is going on, if it's a negative, it's discrimination or whatever, without any retaliation. There would be many more parents here today, except they are afraid to show up. And so we just left Black History Month, and I'll leave you with this, where everybody's singing, "We shall overcome," and we'll walk hand in hand, and we'll not be afraid. I simply ask that this committee would give a favorable report to this bill so that folks will not be afraid to come and express their needs to this committee or to the schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you. Good to have you back. And now, Catherine Dangle, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. Oh, lovely. Dear Honorable Chair Feldman and members of the committee, my name is Catherine Dangle, and I am testifying in support of Senate Bill 659 due to how it protects students. So I'm a sophomore at Glen Elk High School, and that is a public school. However, due to my own personal experiences with the protection that this bill allows, I think that I can provide a new sort of opinion on how important these are. This bill requires that information shared with school staff, such as mental health issues or records of assault and harassment, are kept confidential. This bill is important to me because when I faced struggles with my mental health, I was able to share it with my school counselor. And I wouldn't have done this if I had known the conversation would be private. If I had thought that this could have been shared, I wouldn't have gone to her, and I wouldn't have received some of the support that she and my teachers gave me. And this support was invaluable. Similarly, privacy is important for students who are questioning their gender or sexual identity. If students are afraid that these conversations will be shared, then they may abstain from sharing important information and miss out on the help that the school can provide and the help that I received. Another way that this bill protects students is keeping a record of discrimination and when it plays a role in harassment. I've had personal experience with how important tracking discrimination is due to how it influences the motives and responses to widespread harassment. Understanding what causes harassment and bullying leads to targeted and effective intervention, and it makes victims feel heard and feel more protected. Since Trump's presidency, I have witnessed an increase in harassment and hostility towards many of my classmates, particularly racial minorities and LGBT+ people. Being afraid of a victim of hate has interfered with their education, their hobbies, and their daily life. This has contributed to constant anxiety and depressive conditions, which isn't fair for children already facing things like body dysmorphia or mental health struggles. Because of this, please pass Senate Bill 659.
Catherine, you did a great job. I've already bragged about you to your mom. Are there questions for Senator Love or any of the witnesses? Seeing none, appreciate your being here. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Next up is going to be Senator Henson, and going back to the chair. Oh, you know what? Okay. I was so eager to hand it back. I apologize. Rokaya Aikawam? Apologize if I got that wrong.
Rokaya and daughter Jenna.
Sorry?
So yeah, my wife and daughter.
Okay. All right. And Jenna Hockey? Your dad already set you up really well. Jaden Ferris is going to be virtual. Okay. Michelle Copper. And Rashida Cohen. I think that should be all 5 seats. And then we have one witness who is virtual. Let's see, Rokaya, who wants to kick us off?
Jenna.
Okay, Jenna, welcome. We're glad you're here. Thank you.
Do I just start? Good afternoon. My name is Jenna. I'm 15 years old. 2.5 years ago, I was a straight A student, a school ambassador, and a star athlete. I believed that if I worked hard and followed the rules, the system would work for me. But I've spent the last 30 months learning that if a school is wealthy enough, it can decide the rules don't apply to it. My nightmare started in October 2023. For 4 months, I was targeted with verbal abuse and taunts that the school chose to ignore because of my religion and the headscarf my mother wears. When 2 girls finally assaulted me in a bathroom, the adults didn't see a victim. They saw an opportunity to get rid of an undesirable. They flipped the script and fabricated a story that I was the aggressor just to put the word dangerous on my permanent record. The most painful part was my counselor, Ms. Scott's betrayal. She pulled me from my core classes regularly to interrogate me about my home life, trying to force me into a stereotype that wasn't true. When she couldn't find anything, she went to my classmates. She told them I had mental issues and violent tendencies. She actually told them to monitor my behavior and report back to her. She turned my own peers into a surveillance network and made me feel hunted in my own hallways. In February 2024, I was forced out, but the pain didn't stop. Because the school gave these students a culture of impunity, the abusers followed me for 2 years. They have continued to harass me online and on my phone. They even reached out to my new friends at my new school to tell them I'm crazy and violent, just to keep me isolated. I started drawing dark pictures of shadows and skeletons because I felt like I was being erased by a lie that wouldn't die. I'm only here because I want to be heard. I'm asking for a system where a student's rights are protected and where a school's wealth isn't a license to destroy a child's life. Thank you.
Jenna, you're going to make me cry. Thank you for sharing your story. I'm so sorry this happened to you. Mom, do you want to go next?
Good afternoon. I'm Jenna's mom. You have already heard the fact of what happened to her and her private school between October 2023 and February 2024. I am here to talk about the 30 months of pain we have carried as a family since this began. I am here to talk about the crushing helplessness of watching your child be destroyed while the law offers no protection. I am an observant Muslim woman. I wear a headscarf. For 2.5 years, I have lived with painful through that my daughter was targeted because of me. The school didn't see a child to protect. They saw a family that didn't fit their image. They spent months building a case to label her dangerous, just to justify pushing us out. As a mother, you want to believe that if you raised your child to be kind, they will be safe. I had to watch that belief fall apart. When we begged for help, the state told us their hands were tied. The law as it stands allows these schools to ignore civil rights because they are essentially allowed to self-report. There is no oversight and no accountability. If school doesn't take public money, it is allowed to police itself. That is a terrifying thing for parents to hear. It means that in Maryland, a school can manufacture a narrative to destroy a child's record, and no one has the power to stop them. Because of this culture of impunity, the harassment didn't stop when we left. The abusers followed Jenna online and reached out to her new friends to keep her isolated. I watched my daughter draw dark pictures of shadows and shattered hearts because she felt like she was being erased by a lie. Please don't let this school hide behind a system that let them ignore the most basic right of child. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Al-Kalam. Thank you. Yes. Rashida or Michelle?
Ready?
may
Dr.
begin.
Rashida Cohen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And good afternoon, Madam Vice Chair and members. My name is Dr. Rashida Cohen, and I want to thank you for your undivided attention. I'm here because of my son's experience, which no child should ever have to endure. And he actually went to the same school as Jenna, but was unable to express today, so I'm here and I'm going to try not to cry. My son was repeatedly called a monkey by his teachers. Students openly use the N-word towards Black students and face little to no consequences. That kind of environment is not just hurtful, it's dehumanizing, and it sends a message to children about who is valued and who is not. There was an incident involving a dean who targeted my son. He followed him at recess, and my son felt so uncomfortable, he hid in the library. Later, this dean was waiting for him at lunch. What my son did in response to ongoing harassment was no worse than what had been said to him. Yet he was the one punished. He was publicly humiliated at lunch in front of his friends and the rest of the school. He was forced to apologize to someone who had offended him. He had to write a letter of apology, and then a field trip was taken away from him. Meanwhile, other students could call a Black child the N-word and face no meaningful consequences. That kind of double standard is devastating. It affected my son's confidence and his sense of belonging. At one point, he was considering taking an AP class. Instead of encouraging him, his teacher suggested that it really wasn't his goal, that it was ours as his parents. This undermined his academic confidence and his belief in himself. This is not just about one incident, it's about a pattern, about accountability. It's about ensuring that schools are safe, equitable places for all children, not environments where racism is tolerated and punished unequally. I'm asking for stronger oversight, clear anti-discrimination enforcement, and real consequences when schools fail to protect students. No child should be made to feel less than because of the color of their skin. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. I think I can speak for my colleagues in saying that these stories are just heartbreaking, and it's not okay. Before we move on, is Michelle Copper here in the room? Seeing that she is not, let's go to Jaden Ferris, who is a virtual witness, and then we'll take questions. I saw that Jaden was in the room. Okay.
Can I go?
We hear you. Welcome. You have up to
Thank
2
you, Madam
minutes.
Vice Chair. For the record, I'm Jaden Ferris on behalf of Glisson, Maryland. We're the state chapter of the largest advocate for LGBTQ plus issues in K-12 schools. For over 34 years, our organization has worked to ensure every student can learn in safe, inclusive, and affirming environments. This bill takes an important step towards that goal by requiring schools to adopt clear student privacy policies and by improving the reporting of discrimination in non-public schools. At its core, Senate Bill 659 is about student safety and trust. Strong privacy protections ensure sensitive student information is handled responsibly. These safeguards protect students and families from misuse of personal data, reduce security risk, and help prevent harmful situations such as students being unintentionally outed, which can expose them to bullying, harassment, and discrimination. The reporting provisions in the bill are equally important. When discrimination goes untracked, policymakers and educators lack the information needed to address such problems. Collecting this data allows the state to identify trends, close gaps, and improve school climate across the state. Research from Glisson shows half of LGBTQ plus students experience harassment or discrimination in school settings, yet nearly 2/3 of those instances are never reported. Transparency and accountability help ensure that every school environment, public or non-public, is safe for students. While these protections particularly benefit LGBTQ plus students, they ultimately strengthen protections for all students. For these reasons, we urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. There are a few questions here. Senator Gallion, why don't you kick us off, followed by Senator Hester.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Listening to your testimony, I don't want to ask the name of the school, but could you tell us like what type of school that was? Was it public, private, a certain type of private school? Could you just tell us that information, please?
It was a private school. Can I say the name? Oh, it was the Bullis School in Potomac, Maryland.
Is that like a faith, like a?
It's a co-ed school.
Private.
Just, okay, so it's not a religious-based school, it's just a private, regular private school?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Senate District 15.
Yeah. Senator Hester.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to thank the senator. I think my question is actually for you. Yes, but just really appreciate the bravery of all of the young folks coming forward to testify on it. Somebody at once said that there's no like recourse in Maryland law, and I just wanted to point out that we did pass Grace's law in 2019, which is for a pattern of cyber harassment, right, or cyber bullying, and many of the cases I've heard, sound like they would fit this bill, and that's prosecutable. It is a it's subject, if somebody's found guilty of violating Grace's law, it's subject to 3 years in prison or a $10,000 fine, right? And I remember, because I was in JPR when we passed this bill, and I said, nobody knows about it. And I'm still worried that nobody knows about Grace's law, because I think several of what we heard could have been, could have been acted on. And so I'm just curious, Senator, I like your bill, but should we also, have you asked the people who you're testifying with, has it been gone to the police and say, hey, this is happening to me, and can you investigate Grace's law? And do we need to do more to educate our school systems about Grace's law?
A couple of things, Senator. Thank you for all of that. And I remember Grace's law as well. If my memory serves me correctly, that's online. And a lot of what happened here was in person. Mm-hmm. So I think there's both of those. With respect to the online, I think you're right that Grace's law would apply. And I do know that, I leave it to the family, but that they had discussions with a lawyer about some of the things that happened. So I think there's a hole that we need to close. And I absolutely agree that we need to get Grace's Law out there more so more people know that it's there to protect the students.
Sorry, I mean, if there's a gap in the law, we should certainly fill it. But it also seems weird that if somebody's getting bullied and harassed in a repeated way, online, that if that happens in real life, it should also be punishable. So I don't know. We'll take it offline. But I do appreciate the bill, and I think it might be worth at some point, us talking offline about requiring like a report on like how educated our school systems are and enforcing Grace's Law.
I think that's a great idea. And I think the other thing about this is the reporting so that it is, so parents who are looking at schools are able to see what's going on. So it's both to protect the students when they're there and also before they get there, they know what sort of environment they're walking into.
Thank you, Senator Hester. Senator Croza.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Senator Love, I just wanted to ask, back in 2022, the non-public schools communities came to the table in good faith to pass HB 850, which did include sweeping education non-discrimination legislation that became law. And my understanding is that those procedures and policies are currently in place for compliance and that they apply to both public and non-public schools. So I'm trying to understand if that was passed back in 22, what were the need for this legislation now?
So I think the distinction is we've got regulations that apply to public schools. We've got regulations that apply to non-public schools that accept state funding. What we don't have is protections for non-public schools that don't accept state funding to have to report discrimination and to keep students' information privately, discrimination complaints, and to keep students' information private.
So you're saying the 22 law did not capture all non-public schools. That's your contention?
That's my understanding.
And that they're not, and that that currently don't have these policies in place?
That is my understanding, and I included in my testimony a letter from the Attorney General that lays out all of the various aspects of what we're dealing with here, and that might be helpful.
Thank you, Senator Croza. Senator Love, I have a question for you as well. The FERPA federal law, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, it seems that the first part of this bill codifies into Maryland law those protections. Is that your intent, and is there something that will then amplify or strengthen what currently governs?
I haven't read FERPA lately, so I can't say whether it's codified, but if you say it is, then yes, ma'am.
Okay, we've got really smart legal counsels in this committee, so I guess we will all work together and figure that out. I see that Senator Attar has a question.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Just as a follow-up to Senator Carrozza, so I'm understanding correctly, currently all schools that accept state funding are already following this?
So they have to, let's see, if the Attorney General's letter is going to lay it out much better than I do. Okay. But they have to file a certification that says that they don't discriminate.
Okay.
So this, non-public schools that don't accept state funding, it's my understanding that they do not. This is going to take it one step further and say that they need to report the number of discrimination complaints.
Okay, so that part is not happening currently with any of the schools. They're not reporting.
Correct.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Sure.
Seeing no other senators with questions, that will now complete the hearing on Senate Bill 659. Thank you, Senator Love, and thank you to all the wonderful witnesses. Back to the chair.
Take you up. You've been patiently learning about Senator Love's bill, and we're going to take Senate Bill 940. I've got 2 witnesses signed up, part of your sponsor panel. Frederick Lendon Tutman, and Rob Ross. Mr. Ross. And Senator, again, we're on Senate Bill 940.
Mr. Chairman, am I able to use a PowerPoint? I did bring a thumb drive. No?
Yeah, the answer is generally yes, but usually we need a little advance notice because Lamoria sets it up, and so I think, unfortunately, I'm going to say it's maybe too late to do that.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you. I do have a witness that has some photos. Would the committee allow?
Sure.
I know props or sometimes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, Senator, you can begin Senate Bill 940.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I first want to thank the advocates on this bill and my staff on this bill. If the advocates seem a little whiplashed, it's because the House version of this bill is being heard today, along with a companion version of this bill. So they started their day with a hearing in Judiciary in the House. They came here, and then when they leave here, they'll be going back across the street to the House for the cross-file of this bill across the street in the House. So they're having a very, very busy day. But they brought this to my attention, the advocates that are in support of this bill. For the record, I'm Senator Shanika Henson here on Senate Bill 940, Environmental Water Quality Testing. Colleagues, what you should have in your packet in the bill folder from me is not only a written testimony from me, but there should be some amendments to this bill that we worked out with MDE, and there also should be a PowerPoint presentation. So if you are a visual learner that takes things in more stimulated by visual images, you will have the opportunity for that there. I'm an audio learner, so these bill hearings are things that actually suit me quite well when I have the opportunity to learn, as I just did on the previous bill. But what this bill would do is put in place some safeguards as it relates to drinking water in mobile home communities. I've learned a lot. As I came into the Senate, I gained a different portion of my district. In the House, I represented a sub-district, and in the Senate, I gained the B side of the district, which has a great deal of mobile home communities in District 30. It was District 30B. Now I have the fullness of District 30. What the legislation does is it addresses some critical gaps in the way that we are testing and the way that we are putting standards in place for drinking water. Our federal government is the entity that puts the standards forward for the quality of drinking water, but we do have some enforcement authority here at the state level when it comes to drinking water. We have standards such as the standards of odor, color, taste, but the federal government really sets the floor for what those standards are. What we're responsible for doing at a state level is making sure that park owners, when it comes to mobile home communities, are putting in place or complying with their testing requirements that the state of Maryland has in place. But the testing requirements really are very minimal testing requirements. The reporting requirements are very minimal reporting requirements. And what that result is that there are often instances where they're able to be in technical compliance with what the state requires, but what the residents are experiencing is not water that anyone here would want to drink, not water that anyone here is able to use. People who are using that water find themselves being sick, find their plants and their animals being injured, find themselves in a position where the water that they're paying for at a great price is coming out of the faucet in a condition that they cannot use, but the park owners are in technical compliance with the standards we have here with the state. So what we've done is we spent the interim working with Secretary McElwain and MDE on trying to figure out how we can tackle this as a state. The original posture of the bill kind of just took a big step forward and said, this is where we need to go. And what the amendments do is it takes a step backward, but still going forward. It would have the department look at some other states that have already tackled the issue of water quality in mobile home parks. Specifically, some of those states that's already taken that on are the states of Alabama, Arkansas, California, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, and Maine. Those states have gotten out ahead of us in the way that they are raising up from the floor that's in the federal standards and putting better quality standards in place for mobile home park residents. So it would have MDE come together and they would create an action plan on how we get from where we are to a place where residents in mobile homes truly can have the dignity of water that comes out of the pipes, ready to be used, ready to be drank in a safe and livable condition. With that, colleagues, I will ask for your favorable report on Senate Bill 940. And Mr. Chair, I will turn it over to my panel.
Thank you very much. I'm Fred Tutman. I've been the river keeper on the Patuxent for 22 years, and all that time I've been getting complaints from residents in mobile home parks about smell, taste, appearance, and even health side effects like stomach cramps from consuming the water that mobile home residents are forced to pay for. In Lothian, Maryland, in Anne Arundel County, most of these water and sewage processing plants are antiques, literally going back to the 1960s when we were playing 45 records. When Senator Bernie Fowler was alive, he and I stood shoulder to shoulder at numerous public hearings lobbying for more stringent regulation of these facilities that generally cut corners on maintaining their infrastructure in order to maintain their profits and their profit distribution to the investors. Their ethos is that basic water is a part of the rental contract, but drinkable water costs extra, and they intend to pass these costs on to the residents. The sad truth is that the primary drinking water standards the federal government specifies are minimalist standards currently reviewed and monitored by MDE, but when it comes to those secondary standards that are not currently regulated by the state, the agencies lack the legal authority to enforce them. So it's obviously going to be the secondary standards where the operators cut their corners. It's what residents, frankly, are usually complaining about. So if someone offers you red, green, or stinky water, or even if MDE and the operators insist that it's perfectly safe to drink nonetheless, it's outrageous and it needs to change. The fact is, you can drink this stuff if you hold your nose, close your eyes, or mix it with something else to mask its unpleasant features. What do they tell you when you're going into a developing nation? Don't drink the water? Well, is third world quality water quality in U.S. mobile homes an acceptable thing? This is literally a nationwide issue and concern, and it ought to be an embarrassment. So, in effect, you can have affordable housing, but right now it comes with substandard water. You can't have both affordable housing and drinkable water unless you pay a premium. It's really shockingly disingenuous. So I would urge a favorable report on this much-needed legislation that protects public health and simple fairness. Thank you for your time.
I'm sorry, it's back to you. Mr. Tutman, I think you were here yesterday with us. You are kind of a frequent flyer in our committee, and you're a wonderful witness. Glad you're here. Thank you. Mr. Ross, you're up next.
Good afternoon, Chair Feldman and committee. My name is Robin Ross, and I'm a mobile home resident in Lothian, one of those that's affected by this water. By trade, I've been working in the commercial HVAC plumbing and industry, and have also done well systems in engineering design, and our systems here are very antiquated, as Fred has testified to. However, you're not going to see other residents here today because they are afraid to step forward. As soon as we speak up, we get retaliation. Make no mistake, they'll more than likely find retaliation against me for this. One of the bigger issues, though, is in fact the quality of the water. And not only have I been in the trade that I've been in, but I also have served for many years in search and rescue. I have two very talented, expensive search and rescue dogs who, after drinking this water, became ill from Pseudomonas aeruginosa, which is a iron bacteria. It cost me thousands of dollars. This has been going on for the last 6 years since I've been in this mobile home park. So I ask for a favorable report on this bill, and thank you for your time.
Thank you all. That is our panel. Are there questions for Senator Henson or the witnesses? Okay. Oh, Senator Brooks.
Thanks, Madam Vice Chair. Thanks, Senator, for the bill. Quick question. What is the source of this water? Is it coming from like well water, aquifers, or? Okay, yes.
Yeah, so in the case of Lothian, I don't know if it's true across the state, these are private wells, each one dedicated to a specific mobile home park. So they're different well sources. There's actually a hotbed of these mobile home parks in Lothian, actually co-owned by the same company. Each one of those parks has its own water processing system and its own well supply source.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is a sample. You can more than welcome to examine it if you like, but this is a typical example of what comes out of the tap. It's, well, it is what it is. But technically, it meets those primary standards. That's the point, that the secondary standards are exactly what people are reacting to, not the primary ones.
All right. So what do you think would solve that particular problem? Because I too have well water, you know, and our water comes out crystal clear and tasteless, odorless, you know.
Sure.
Yeah. So.
In all frankness, MDE does not look at those secondary standards because they don't have the statutory power to enforce them, and thus they're sort of irrelevant to what they've been tasked to do. This bill opens up the opportunity for the state to actually regulate those secondary standards, which is a much more comprehensive look at what's coming out of the tap, what's coming out of the hose bib, you know, what's in your toilet, what's coming into your dishwasher, all of that.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Thank
you. Thank you for your question.
Senator Henson, I was noticing in the fiscal note, because I was curious about the breadth of this bill, because it's not free, as we would anticipate. There are 314 known mobile home parks in the state of Maryland, and 201 are not currently regulated as public water systems. Do you have any idea why some are and some aren't? And if not, we can totally talk about it another time.
I don't know the specifics on that. My understanding, just to draw a contrast, is that public providers of water, in other words, they provide water and sell it to the public, are regulated quite differently from a private well source, you know, like the senator, for example, or like my well, for that reason.
May I add to that, Madam Vice Chair, that the amendments that we worked out with MDE, they can incorporate with existing resources, but it would not be as far of a step forward to getting to where the residents would like to be. But as Mr. Tupman indicated, it does open the door to a workable standard for MDE to start to enforce those secondary standards.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tupman. Thank you, Senator Henson.
Thank you.
Senate Bill 940, back to the chair.
Okay, Senator Zucker, welcome back. 2 straight days. We're going to go to Senate Bill 904, and you've got 3 sponsor panel. I'm going to call 4 favorable witnesses up here. Christopher Cano, Paul Lemley, Stephanie Patterson, and I see Jessica Cook. Jessica here. Okay. Just, again. Nope, there she is. Okay, we got 4 witnesses, 4 favorable. Those are the witnesses on this bill. Senator Zucker, floor is yours. Senate Bill 904.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, distinguished colleagues of the EEE Committee. For the record, Senator Craig Zucker here in support of Senate Bill 904. One of the main reasons why I'm here is Senator Feldman asked me today what is my favorite committee, so I decided to come back. So if you have any problems with this, please blame your chairman, not me. But in all seriousness, the education support professionals have been near and dear to my heart, and I know they have been to you as well. These are our school bus drivers, our in-school faculty, our para-educators. And how do I know they're near and dear to your heart is you all worked with us, meaning the Senate worked together to provide bonuses to this population of workers. And the reason why we did that collectively was we wanted to ensure that we were not only retaining this important population, but also attracting them as well. So, you know, what this bill does is it does a number of things that in some ways creates an even playing field, not only for the men and women in these positions, but also the people that they interact with every day. So what this bill does is, first and foremost, is it provides training in a way that is not necessarily as focused on with the current law, but training in terms of procedures around restraint, learning, ESP learning collaboration with teachers and other school employees, crisis prevention and de-escalation training. It also, I know this was an issue in Howard County, and I speak about, and Paul's heard this many times, the impact that paras have had on my son when he was during virtual school, but we saw it also in real time during the pandemic when you had to have people outside the state come in and our National Guard drive buses. So what this does is it really makes sure that we have this kind of Maryland first model where, we're looking to our own in-house to make sure that before we contract out, we're doing what we can to make sure that we're hiring Maryland and utilizing the people we have in the state. What's interesting is for a group of people who interact so closely with parents and students, I think it's important that we do all we can to lift them up and ensure that they know they're welcome here in Maryland and we keep them in Maryland. So with that, I'd ask for a favorable report. Look forward to working with this committee on trying to get something done. And with that, I'll turn it over to my very distinguished panel.
Okay. Who do you want to go first?
Afternoon, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, members of the committee. My name is Paul Lemley, President of Maryland State Education Association. We represent about 76,000 educators and school employees, and we're here today in strong support of Senate Bill 904. I'm going to speak briefly on the outsourcing, and Stephanie Patterson, our ESP of the Year, is going to speak about professional development. Despite the essential role that our support professionals play, they're often impacted by the employer's decision to subcontract and privatize essential school services that are typically performed by our public school employees. When these outside vendors and for-profit companies are providing these essential services rather than the educators who know students, know their names, know the schools, know the communities, it can negatively impact our workers, lead to disruption in those school services, and this can affect our students and families and degrade transparency and accountability. Research shows that there are significant downsides to outsourcing these professional roles and jobs. We've seen instances of loss of public control over these services, a lack of savings, and the opposite, loss of accountability, transparency, effects to the school's ability to respond to emergencies, loss of institutional expertise, reductions in wages and benefits, disruption in the school culture, and all of it with disproportionate impacts to women and workers of color. School systems say that this legislation is disruptive, we can't enforce it, we won't be able to hire. That's not what the bill says. We would like to raise standards and attract and retain the highest quality educators for our students. Of course, our schools are our communities, and our students need educators who are part of and invested in that community. Outsourcing destroys that. Passing this bill makes the school system show their work. Instead of just claiming that outsourcing is good and that it produces savings, show how that's true. And if outside companies, employees will work with our children, we want to know all the details. We urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the committee. My name is Stephanie Patterson, proud member of the Calvert Association of Educational Support Staff, serving as Secretary for CHESPACs within Calvert County Public Schools, and MSEA ESP of the Year. I am here today in strong support of Senate Bill 904. Paid professional development for education support professionals is crucial as it helps close equity gaps in students, supports career growth, and fosters skill acquisition. In turn, it enhances job safety, increases staff retention, and ensures that staff remain effective, valued, and well-respected. Currently, the access to high-quality, meaningful, and consistent PD for ESPs varies widely year by year, district to district, building to building in the state of Maryland. Staff have identified that some counties offer no options. Others provide training that is too broad and not job-related. In some districts, it has been noted that if dedicated training exists, it is a piecemeal and lacks true professional value. while yet others can collaborate with teachers, engage in safety training, receive informed guidance on trauma response, behavioral issues, crisis response and prevention, and skills related to support students with disabilities. This bill would create a unified system that would provide training to facilitate paraeducators and teachers working as a team, training for ESP to collaborate with paraeducators and teachers to improve student outcomes, ESP training to improve student learning environments, school buildings, buses, playgrounds, athletic facilities, cafeterias, etc., paraprofessional training on safe physical restraints, ESP training on crisis prevention and de-escalation, and job skills training specific to certain ESP groups. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cook, you want to go now?
Good afternoon, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and the committee. My name is Jessica Cook. For the record, I am also here on behalf of the Maryland State Education Association, and I'm here to answer questions if needed.
Sir?
Mr. Chair, my name is Christopher Cano. I'm the Director of Political and Legislative Affairs for the members of SEIU Local 500. And our members support this bill because it accomplishes two key things that I think are important and are bipartisan in nature. It addresses two longstanding issues that educational support professionals are facing. Number one being the unchecked expansion of service contracts to displace public employees and essentially cost taxpayers more dollars while not delivering on the promise of savings or quality of services. And it addressed the lack of consistent and paid high-quality professional development for workers who are closest to the students. This bill endeavors to bring accountability and transparency to the outsourcing of school services, and it makes long overdue investments in paraeducators and other educational support professionals through the creation of a system of paid in-person professional development during the workday. This affects our members greatly because in Montgomery County, which we represent, our educational support staff rarely get a significant, adequate number of paid professional development. What they do often get is 20 no work, no pay days that we had on last year's school calendar. So there is an opportunity here for you all to essentially ensure that our educational support professionals are trained, have the latest in their training and ensuring that they're supporting our kids and ensuring that we can do a lot better for our school systems. The bill is clear that nothing in the law diminishes the existing collective bargaining agreements or employment benefits, and this respect for workers' rights and negotiated protections is essential. And educational support professionals have historically been excluded from the decision-making and underinvested in our schools despite their critical role. This begins to correct that imbalance and values their labor, protects their jobs, and invest in their professional growth. And on behalf of the members of SEIU Local 500, we urge a favorable report and thank Senator Zucker for his leadership on this issue, and we thank you all for paying attention to their needs.
Okay, thank you to Senator Zucker and the entire panel. Any questions for Senator Zucker or the panel? Okay, seeing none, that concludes bill here on Senate Bill 904. Thank you, Senator Zucker. Hopefully we still are your #1 committee in the Senate?
I'll say that again tomorrow when I speak.
Okay, great, thank you.
I think you might say it to everyone.
Okay, is Senator King here yet? Or there? Patty, why don't you come on up here? We've got several Senator King bills. Why don't we start with Senate Bill 535. Michelle Copper here, Abby Chan, and then what about William Adrian? Yeah, okay. I think those are the three witnesses signed up on this bill. And so, Patty, why don't you start and tell us your name for the record, and then we'll go to the witnesses all signed up favorable, okay?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Patty Horton on behalf of Senator King. When Senator King served on the Montgomery County Board of Education, she saw firsthand the value of student perspective as policy issues were being debated and enacted. Understanding the importance of student voices in places where young people learn and gather, Senator King is introducing Senate Bill 535, which will authorize county boards of library trustees to allow for the selection of a student member. The bill does not require local boards to add a student member, but it sets the framework should a board decide to move in that direction, while leaving the process up to the local boards. By incorporating student voices into governance decisions that affect programming, outreach, and services for young residents, we will be cultivating the next generation of civic leaders while increasing transparency, broadening perspective, and reinforcing the roles of libraries as inclusive community institutions. And so on behalf of Senator King, I respectfully request a favorable report on Senate Bill 535.
Okay, thank you, Patty. Who wants to go next? Patty, you want to designate the next speaker? Okay, go on. Each of you are on the up to 2-minute clock.
Thank you, Chair Friedman, Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the committee. My name is Abby Chan, and I'm a junior at Crofton High School. I'm also the student member of the Anne Arundel County Public Library Board of Trustees. As the student member, I serve as an advocate for youth in my library system. My position ensures that student perspectives are heard and brought to the forefront of the library's governing body. In our system, I have full voting rights, and I serve as an equal among my fellow board members. Before student members were included on library boards, decisions that impact youth were often made with only adult voices at the table. While those perspectives are important, students experience libraries in different ways. Having a student member ensures that those real experiences are represented when decisions are made. In my role, I've been able to testify at Town Hall on behalf of District 7's library system, speaking from a youth perspective on the need for increased funding that shared how young people rely on library spaces daily, and how expanded funding would support more programs or resources that students depend on. As both a student and a library trustee, I've also helped bridge my school and our local library to create a nearly entirely student-led Lunar New Year festival. Working closely with both library staff and students, we organized performances, cultural activities, and community outreach that ultimately brought over 200 plus attendees and gave each student the opportunity to lead and share their heritage in our community. Overall, having a student member benefits the entire library system. It helps boards better understand youth needs and how decisions about spaces and resources affect our students across our county. It also helps strengthen connections with schools and brings fresh ideas into discussions. For students, it provides leadership experience, builds civic engagement, and shows young people that their voices matter. Students are not just library users, they're partners in shaping the future of our libraries. This bill would ensure that more students, like me, across Maryland have the opportunity to contribute, lead, and bring their perspectives into decisions that affect them. Thank you for the opportunity to share my experience, and I respectfully urge a favorable report on this bill.
Okay, thank you. Since you got a mic right in front of you, why don't you give us your testimony?
Of course. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the committee. My name is Will Andrioni. I am a senior at Severna Park High School. I also serve as the Secretary of Legislation for CRESC, or Anne Arundel County Student Government, and I'm here today in very strong support of House Bill 535, a bill that authorizes County Library Board of Trustees to add a 1-year voting high school member and establishing the eligibility and selection criteria. So libraries are what are called third spaces, especially for students, with third spaces being social environments outside of your home or your school where people can just relax and build community there. So as we look on ways to improve third spaces in libraries and especially incentivize more students to come to this, it all circles back on how we can represent them, and that comes through youth representation. With students bringing lived experience and fresh ideas into decisions that affect their peers, students often offer perspectives that adults lack, ensuring full community representation. This is no different for a library board of trustees and the perspectives they bring. Having a student at the table means that the board directly listens to the demographic that uses and is impacted by these materials the most, and the spaces that teens use are often boosted by their input. But it isn't just that other board members have to hear from a student on the board of trustees. The student member's vote carries the same amount of weight as any adult member. When a student or youth participates simply in an advisory capacity, they can just be thanked and then ignored. Having a voting student member ensures that youth input is a part of the actual decision, not just an afterthought. Students today face digital fatigue from screens, mental health gaps, and other post-pandemic isolation, issues that many generations before us never faced. Having a student voting member there ensures that these experiences and these challenges that students face are brought to the table in ways that we can improve our libraries and third spaces in ways that truly reflect our peers. So for those reasons and more, I urge a favorable report on House Bill 535. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Copper.
Thank you so much. Dear Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the committee. My name is Dr. Michelle Schlehofer Copper, and I'm actually here on behalf of 2 organizations, the Wicomico County Board of Trustees, for which I serve as board secretary, and I'm also a board member of Citizens for Maryland Libraries, which is a statewide network of citizen advocates for Maryland libraries. And both of the organizations whom I represent support Senate Bill 535 regarding student members on county boards of library trustees. Both the Wicomico Public Library and Citizens for Maryland Libraries value youth engagement and believe that student voices can contribute meaningfully to board deliberations. Allowing boards to appoint a student member through a locally determined process supports both meaningful participation and appropriate oversight. Appointment of student members can also help library boards develop a leadership pipeline, helping to prepare the next generation of trustees and establish a strong, lifelong supporters of libraries. We are grateful for the sponsor's inclusion of language that allows but does not require local boards to directly appoint a student member. Providing this flexibility honors local governance and enables each board to establish a selection process that reflects its community and policy priorities. And for these reasons, both the Wicomico Public Library Board of Trustees and Citizens for Maryland Libraries urges the committee to give SB 535 a favorable report. Thank you for your leadership and continued support of Maryland's public libraries.
Okay, thank you to everybody on the panel. Questions for this panel? Senator Carrozza.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Schellhofer. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
It's close, Schleihofer.
Okay. I appreciate the testimony from the Wicomico Public Library, and I'm just trying to get a sense of, because I know this is specifically for the libraries, and then we have the issues also that students are appointed to local boards of education. So I'm just trying to get a sense of, because I know the students appointed to those local boards of education are involved in the process, but then there are sometimes some sensitive matters that come up for the board regarding personnel and other issues that I believe that there's some, kind of separation of the student involvement. And so with the libraries, from the standpoint of what the student engagement might be, especially since I know we've had issues come up about content of materials in libraries. So I'm just trying to get a sense of how that is managed, if that has been discussed.
Yeah, that's a really fair question. And one of the stipulations of the bill is that it allows each county system to develop their own process for student membership, whether that be the number of appointees, whether they have appointees, whether or not the appointees have voting rights. So I think in our county, the Board of Education has student members, but they're non-voting, right? So they wouldn't necessarily participate in voting. They wouldn't participate in voting or necessarily hear those sensitive matters. But the bill currently provides county libraries with the flexibility to develop the type of student appointees that would be best for them.
So I appreciate your clarifying it, because when I was reading the fiscal note, it left me with the impression that the voting rights were automatic for the student member, whereas my recollection was we were allowing individual local, those of us who really support local, we were allowing that local autonomy. Am I correct?
That is my impression as well, and I think the local autonomy is important because each library system is structured very differently, down to even the number of members. So we have a very large library board in our county, so we are actually at capacity, right? But other library systems might benefit more from student voice, maybe are smaller. So allowing the counties to really determine that process would be very beneficial to both allowing avenues for student representation and also allowing those boards to be comprised in a way that benefits the county system's needs.
Patty, did you want to clarify that part of the bill?
Thank you, Senator. What Michelle said is correct. It was drafted loosely so each county can decide if they want a member, if they want a voting member, and how they would participate.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Okay, additional questions for the panel? Okay, seeing none, that concludes bill hearing on Senate Bill 535. We're going to get some overlapping witnesses here on this next bill, Senate Bill 646. Sam Mathias here is Josh Sivan and William. You signed up, I think, for the next bill as well, Senate Bill 646. Are you? No? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, William Andrioni, not signed up. Okay, you're not. Yeah. Okay, well, you did sign up, but obviously that was a mistake. Okay, Sam Mathias, Josh Sivan, and Christopher Cato, you signed up fair with amendments. So why don't you come on up, because that's the extent of the witnesses on the bill, so why don't we just take it all. Patty, why don't you lead off Senate Bill 646?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Patty Horton for Senator King. During the 2024 legislative session, legislation was passed for state agencies and universities, which codified that contract provisions inconsistent with Maryland law or public policy are void as a matter of law. Passage of that legislation eliminated the need for repetitive negotiation over terms that conflict with established public policy and gave state agencies and universities a clear statutory reference point to refer to when reviewing vendor agreements. Senate Bill 646 will provide Maryland's local school systems with the same contract streamlining and protection. After the bill was introduced, Senator King was alerted to an unattended consequence of the bill as drafted, and so she is introducing an amendment. This amendment clarifies that Senate Bill 646 does not include collective bargaining agreements. The bill was always intended to provide clarity and efficiency in public school procurement contracting, not labor contracts. Senate Bill 646 with amendments will allow public school systems to save taxpayer dollars by applying the same contracting protection standards that already apply elsewhere in the state government. And so on behalf of Senator King, I respectfully request a favorable report on Senate Bill 646 with amendments.
Okay, Mr. Mathias, you want to go next?
Thank you, Chair Feldman and members of the committee. I'm Sam Mathias on behalf of the Maryland Association of Boards of Education, representing all 24 local boards here in strong support of Senate Bill 646. As Patty mentioned, this is based on a bill enacted, SB 375 in 2024, that extended to public universities and state agencies certain contractual protections. This bill would extend those same protections to Maryland's local school systems. Local school systems enter into hundreds of contracts each year for instructional software, transportation services, even field trips and student activities. A simple I agree click-through agreement can incorporate out-of-state governing contracts, out-of-state governing law clauses, broad indemnification provisions, or mandatory arbitration terms in a contract, which should not and often cannot be accepted by a public entity. And when this occurs, school system staff must identify the language and negotiate its removal, which consumes time and public resources that could otherwise be used to support classrooms and students. SB 646 addresses this issue directly by making specified impermissible provisions void as a matter of Maryland law. Then this bill will eliminate repetitive negotiation over terms that school systems cannot or should not accept as stewards of public funds. It creates clarity, reduces administrative burden, and allows routine transactions to proceed without unnecessary delay or expense. And as she mentioned, we also worked with stakeholders to develop a narrow amendment clarifying that collective bargaining agreements with labor unions are carved out from this bill's scope, so are not part of the bill at all. And for these reasons, MABE respectfully requests a favorable report on SB 646.
Okay, Mr. Sibin, why don't you go next?
Hi, good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. I'm Josh Sibin. I'm the Chief Legal Officer for Baltimore City Public Schools, and I'm testifying on behalf of the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners to support this bill and thank the Senator for recognizing the benefits that this legislation will provide. One benefit that I really want to emphasize is that my hope is that this will result in a lot less lawyering for school systems. And I know that's a strange thing for a lawyer to say, but from my experience, 6 years working for Baltimore City Public Schools, and before that, 7 years as the General Counsel of Montgomery County Public Schools, in many situations we had provisions that were introduced by contractors. One that I remember is a negotiation over a high school prom that had prohibitive provisions in it that we had to work a long time and almost miss the prom to get that out. We have educational technology vendors who want to limit their liability just to the cost of the contract, which isn't even contemplating the the potential loss of data and the like that could happen, click-through agreements, as Sam said, but also choice of law provisions that are on across the country, or even my personal favorite was a contract that required a choice of law provision in Italy, which I said to the superintendent at the time, I'd be happy to volunteer to go, but I'm not sure that's a good use of school system resources. So our hope is in these situations, often folks are willing to remove these provisions if there's a law we can point to. When we can't, that requires a negotiation. So our hope is that we get the benefit here, we streamline provisions, and really we get needed services in front of students and staff so that our schools can operate effectively. And for those reasons, the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners supports Senate Bill 646 and urges a favorable report.
Okay, Mr. Kano, we'll take you. You're signed fair with amendments, but you're the only other witness, so let's just.
Thank you, sir. Our members at SEIU Local 500 do support this bill with amendments. You know, the legislation provides important safeguards to prevent public school systems from being forced into unfair or fiscally irresponsible contracts. And school systems should not be required to indemnify private vendors without appropriated funds, waive their right to proper venue in Maryland courts, agree to binding arbitration outside of statutory frameworks, or accept the automatic renewals that apply future funding without legislative approval. Now, these protections are especially important as school systems, as you've heard, contract for technology, transportation, food service, and other operational supports. And without guardrails, districts can be locked into agreements that undermine fiscal accountability and limit public oversight. Now, we support amendments on this bill. Number one, to clarify the preservation of collective bargaining rights, ensure transparency in public reporting, and strengthen worker protections in contracting by adding language that requires contracts subject to this section may not include provisions that restrict compliance with state labor standards, wage laws, or worker safety requirements. Public contracting should reinforce, not weaken, Maryland's labor protections. And we believe this bill takes an important step towards protecting taxpayer dollars, preserving local control, and ensuring school systems are not pressured into unfair contractual terms. We just ask for the amendments to, again, clarify that this does not affect our existing collective bargaining agreements. And with the proposed amendment, this bill will both strengthen fiscal responsibility and safeguard our workers' rights, and we urge a favorable report with the suggested amendments.
Okay. Patty, does the Center have a position on these SEIU Local 500 amendments? Or?
I believe they are the same amendments unless there is something new we're not aware of.
Okay, fair enough.
But we worked with all of the unions.
Okay, any questions for this panel? Okay, seeing none, that concludes bill hearing on Senate Bill 646. Let's go to Senate Bill 810, also from Senator King. Let's call Christopher Kano up, back up. Helen Rodriguez-Latena, and then we have one. Do we have a virtual witness? Okay, so we got two witnesses here on the bill, straight favorable. Okay, Helen, why don't you go first, mix it up here, and then we'll go to you, Mr. Kano. After you, Patty. You present the bill, Senate Bill 810.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Again, Patty Horton for Senator King. Because of actions by the federal government, some parents are afraid to send their children to school, and some children who do attend are living in fear of detention or that their parents might not be there when they get home. And even children who are not directly impacted by federal immigration enforcement actions are living in conditions of chronic stress when they see their friends are in constant fear. The chronic stress and lack of trust is undermining healthy development and undermining our public schools' ability to offer a thorough and efficient education as required by our state constitution. Senate Bill 810 will be one step in restoring community trust and help in alleviating some fears of students and parents while children are in school by barring public school security personnel from producing or sharing information or documentation pertaining to student educational records or other information about or from a student, a public school employee, a public school employee's family, or household for the purposes of federal immigration investigation or enforcement. Senate Bill 810 clearly lays out that along with barring public school security personnel from sharing information, they must also immediately contact the county superintendent and legal counsel for the local school system if presented with a valid judicial warrant, judicial subpoena, or legal order for the protection of information or documentation regarding a student, a public school employee, or a public school student's or employee's family. Intimidation and fear have no place in our schools, and our schools cannot function without the trust of their students and parents. By ensuring that our school security personnel are focused on the jobs they were hired to do, protecting our children, and not being drawn into federal immigration enforcement, our schools can move forward with providing students a safe space to learn and grow. For these reasons, on behalf of Senator King, I respectfully request a favorable report on Senate Bill 810. Mr. Chair, the House cross-file of this bill has been amended to be an emergency bill, and the House has passed the bill with several other amendments. Senator King is in support of those amendments and hopes the committee will give them consideration.
Okay, thank you for letting us know that. Okay, let's go to our two additional witnesses. Patty, why don't you hand that mic just to your right?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the committee. My name is Shannon Wilk, and I am We Are CASA's Director of Education. With over 100,000 members residing in Maryland, We Are CASA provides multiple education services to youth and adult immigrants, including college and career readiness, ESOL, and vocational training. I am here today in strong support of Senate Bill 810. Last year, student enrollment declined across the state of Maryland. At the same time, chronic absenteeism rates increased and graduation rates decreased for Latina and multilingual students. The state superintendent has indicated that if action is not taken, we will only see greater disparities in the future. Key to addressing the crisis is ensuring that all students feel truly welcomed and valued within our public education system. We Are CASA is proud to support SB 810 because of its focus on ensuring safe and trustworthy school communities. School staff, from teachers to administration to support personnel, including school resource officers, must ensure that students have a safe learning environment to foster creativity and individual growth while preparing for their future. In a time when so many Black, Latina, Afro-descendant, Indigenous, and immigrant students are living with the daily fear of family separation, it is critical that they understand our schools will not betray their fundamental role of providing an education by participating in the current deportation machine. We Are CASA supported the 2025 Maryland Values Act, sensitive location guidance that with your support is now law. We welcome and support the SB 810 cross-file, House Bill 1341, which passed third reader on February 27th with amendments. With the addition of these same amendments, SB 810 will strengthen protections for students, teachers, and other members of our state's workforce who have dedicated their careers to supporting the most essential needs of our vibrant Maryland communities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cano.
Mr. Chair, SEIU Local 500 actually represents the school security staff in Montgomery County Public Schools. And for our members working in those schools, this bill is about protecting staff from being placed in an untenable position. School security employees and support staff should not be forced to act as extensions of the federal immigration authorities or to participate in actions that may contribute to racial profiling or the targeting of vulnerable communities. Their duty is to create a safe learning environment for every child, regardless of their background. And we all know that Governor Moore has signed into law the end of 287G agreements with local law enforcement here in Maryland. And we have to ensure that Maryland's public schools remain safe spaces where children are judged by their potential, not their immigration status, their last name, or the neighborhood they come from. By keeping immigration enforcement functions separate from school safety and ensuring that it stops at the front door of our schools, schools should not be used as sites of government overreach. Our school personnel can focus fully on protecting our students from the real threats to their safety, and we urge a favorable report on this bill to safeguard student privacy, protect our school employees, and preserve the trust of Maryland's public schools.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Senator Carrozza.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Patty, I think this is for you, and just trying to understand the extent of the bill. So we have the bill that is now law, which eliminated the the 287 agreements. However, after that was signed into law, the governor made statements about it doesn't prevent communication and some of the informal working relationships that have been set in place. So I'm looking at this, in the SROs, in my counties, these are deputy sheriffs. So I'm trying to understand the extent of this legislation of, is it prohibiting communication and informal, some of these informal arrangements that are already in place?
So it is certainly prohibiting them for giving information about a student, an employee, a student's family to someone from ICE unless they have been presented with some sort of subpoena. And even in that case, they must go to the county superintendent and the council before they can give out any of that information.
So I guess my follow-up would be, has there been any even informal conversations in the development of this legislation, either with sheriffs or county elected officials, school boards, just, again, trying to understand how this would work in practicality?
So we have some testimony in favor, written testimony in favor from the school boards. I'm not aware of any conversations with law enforcement.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? Okay, seeing none, that concludes Bill here on Senate Bill 810. Thank you to the panel. Senator Heddleman here by chance? Senator Heddleman? Calling Senator Heddleman, Shelley Heddleman from District 11, Senate Bill 648. And I'm going to call up your panelists, Jimmy Adams here, Matthew Street. Those are my two witnesses on the list. Senator Heddleman, Senate Bill 648. And when you're ready, you can begin.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, members of EEE, I'm Shelley Heddleman, Senator from District 11, and I'm here to present a bill that you all heard and passed last year. Yay. And we introduced it in the same format that it was passed by this committee and passed by the Senate. I won't go into the sort of details of why it did not succeed last year, but I will say it is an important bill to help ensure that those who are in our classrooms are appropriately and properly vetted. This stems from an incident that happened in my district with a school principal who was a deep fake. I'm not going to get into all of the details, but if you recall, Pikesville High School had a principal and a teacher at the school, an athletic director, used AI to create a deep fake that misrepresented this teacher. And it was later learned that there were a number of things that perhaps could have been picked up as red flags if we had used NASDAQ, which is a screening entity to do screening in the hiring process. So what this bill does is it requires every LEA to use NASDAQ, an educator identification clearinghouse, as part of the process for hiring and reviewing educators. As you all know, educators and school staff hold positions of immense trust, shaping not only academic outcomes, but emotional and physical safety of students. Weaknesses do exist in our screening practices, and in fact, there is a recent audit from the Maryland State Department of Education that highlights some of those concerns that have allowed individuals with documented misconduct to move between school districts and states without detection. And addressing these vulnerabilities is essential to ensuring that those working in Maryland schools meet the highest professional and ethical standards. This bill addresses that problem by establishing a consistent statewide approach to educator screening. Under the bill, all LEAs must become associate members of this group, NASDAQ, and you'll hear a little bit about that in a few minutes. And they would screen prospective hires through its educator identification clearinghouse. This national system enables states and school districts to access critical information like license revocations, disciplinary actions, and ethical violations that may not appear in traditional background checks. doesn't replace existing hiring procedures or impose additional burdens on school systems. Instead, it serves as an early warning mechanism, flagging concerns that warrant closer review. By ensuring that decision makers have access to comprehensive and current information, the bill supports sound hiring practices and helps safeguard students and school staff. The legislation is about creating uniform standards that prioritize student well-being and reinforce the integrity of our education system. We all deserve confidence that those entrusted with educating children have been thoroughly screened, and administrators deserve reliable tools to prevent individuals with a history of misconduct from slipping through the system. This bill strengthens those protections for students by adding an additional layer of accountability to the educator hiring process. And I want to say we've worked closely with MSDE, with PZAM, with MSEA, with MABE to come to consensus. You should have an amendment that clarifies things that I think got us tripped up on the other side last year. So we are working together with the folks across the street, and I hope that we can all come to consensus this year. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Never mind, we do have those amendments. Okay, who wants to go next? Senator Hedelman, why don't you just pass the mic?
Good afternoon, Chair Feldman and Vice Chair Kagan, members of the committee. My name is Matthew Street. I'm a director within our Office of Legislative Audits. My testimony today will provide context to the bill regarding a finding of our recent audit of State Department of Education dated January 16th, 2006. Our office does not take a position on the bill due to our independence related to conducting audits of state agencies. At the time of our audit, only 8 of the 24 LEAs had memberships with NASDAQ. That means 16 LEAs did not have membership within NASDAQ. MSDE routinely encouraged the membership in the clearinghouse through memos that they sent out to the local school systems. And part of that, memos were to say that having membership with NASDAQ strengthened their organizational risk plan, strongly encouraged the members to become members and incorporate the clearinghouse in their hiring process for an added layer of protection. In response to our finding, MSD stated it could not require membership based on the current law. It had proposed some alternative solutions to that, whereby they would work with the State Board of Education to possibly propagate regulations to ensure that the school systems get set up through the Education Application Credential Hub, TEACH, before beginning assignments. That means the people being hired would go through that, and MSDE is a member of NASDAQ, so that would help to ensure that things are happening the way they should. However, you know, our position is that if an individual is not registered in TEACH, there's a risk that that individual could potentially be hired and go with undetected prior disciplinary action. So that would otherwise cause the denying of a license application, make the individual ineligible for employment. So instead of relying on the application to register, we continue to believe that this legislation would take the necessary steps to ensure all the LEAs are registered through the clearinghouse.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. My name is Jimmy Adams. I am the Executive Director of the National Association of State Directors of Teacher Education and Certification, which is a mouthful. We go by NASTEC. And you've already heard about the bill. I'm here to explain what the Educator Identification Clearinghouse is. The purpose of this bill and granting school districts access to it is to empower those school districts to be able to do their due diligence when they're screening applicants for positions. This bill would allow them to see if a person has had any administrative actions taken against his or her license in yours or in another state. The clearinghouse contains administrative actions, not criminal records. Administrative actions can vary from state to state based on each state's unique statutes and regulations. One state may only be able to revoke a license, while others may be able to revoke, admonish, or suspend a license. The information in the clearinghouse will not show up in a criminal background records check unless the administrative action was based on a criminal conviction. Even then, that criminal background records check will not address what occurred with the teacher's or the educator's license. The clearinghouse has been in existence since 1985. all 50 states, the District of Columbia, the Department of Defense Education Activities, Ontario, British Columbia, and Guam all contribute to it. By including the clearinghouse in its background screening, school districts can make fully informed placement decisions. So why is this important? Nationwide, about 6,100 educators have adverse actions taken against their license each year. Most of these misconduct cases are prosecuted through administrative hearings, not criminal court. It is not uncommon for an educator who had an adverse action taken against his or her license in one state to apply for another position, be it licensed or not licensed, or even a volunteer in another state. And then even some will apply for another application or educator preparation program.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Senator Heddleman or two witnesses? Okay, seeing none, that concludes bill hearing on Senate Bill 648. Thank you, Senator Heddleman.
Thank you.
Okay, Senator Alonzo Washington, I believe, walked in the House here, and we are on Senate Bill 526. And
Yes,
Senator, I've got some witnesses favorable. I could call them up. I am going to call them up. Timothy Meyer, Mayor Selena Benitez, and we have two virtual witnesses. Are they here? Okay, we'll call Corey Johnson and we'll call up the two virtual witnesses next. But Senator Washington, Senate Bill 526. So why don't you start?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you today to present on House Senate Bill, 526. This bill addresses a critical need in our school system, which is called the Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day to commemorate Ruby Bridges. Ruby Bridges is in the Maryland curriculum, but anchored to nothing. Other holidays are all codified in the Maryland law. This bill adds Ruby Bridges to that framework and connects her story to a physical community act, walking to school together. In November 2023, students Sky Sosa and Shalom Mubah, were struck and killed by a van while crossing a crosswalk on their way to Riverdale Elementary School. Their deaths prompted the Prince George's County to establish a formal school pedestrian safety work group in April 2024. Among their 18 final recommendations was establishing the Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day as an official event. With this bill, Maryland will join California, New Jersey, and Oregon in formally designating Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, and Maryland would be the first state to have more than a ceremonial day and require an educational component with civil rights and social justice resources. This bill designates November 14th every year as Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. MSDE, according to the fiscal note, can make resources publicly available for the programs using existing resources. No fiscal effects and school systems may choose to implement an educational program based on MSDE resources. Therefore, it is voluntary. There is an amendment that I plan to propose to this committee that removes part of the bill to align it with the House version that is soon to be passed. I want to just talk a little bit about Ruby Bridges before I pass it off to my colleagues here. Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day commemorates one of the most significant moments in American civil rights history. The day in 1960 when a 6-year-old girl walked through a hostile crowd to integrate in all-white New Orleans Elementary School. That story is not just national history, but it is Maryland's history, rooted in the same legal legacy as Thurgood Marshall and Brown v. Board versus Education. Designating November 14th as a formal observance connects that history to a living act, walking to school together simultaneously with pedestrian injuries and fatalities near Maryland schools continue to occur with no coordinated statewide response. And Mr. Chairman and Madam Vice Chair, this is the response. For these reasons, I respectfully ask for a favorable report on Senate Bill 526.
Okay, thank you, Senator Washington. Because the other Senator Washington's not here, we don't have to call you A. Washington.
Yeah.
Everybody knows who you are. Okay, Mayor, do you want to go next? And we'll.
Yeah, I do. Thank you so much. So, Chairman Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, members of the Education, Energy, Environment Committee, I'm here in strong support of Senate Bill 526, which designates November 14 as Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. The important legislation not only honors Ruby Bridges' historic role in desegregating public schools, but also provides an opportunity for students across the state to engage in meaningful discussions about civil rights, diversity, and social justice. It also raises awareness on pedestrian safety, saving lives. Our community has already demonstrated a strong commitment to this initiative. The Rainier Elementary School PTO has been active participant in recognizing Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, and in the following year, Thomaston Elementary also received an award for organizing their own walk. These efforts reflect the enthusiasm and dedication of our schools in fostering conversations about equality, history, and power of civic action. We also reduced the speed limit in our city to 20 miles per hour and have been working to continue creating safe streets that are walkable, bikeable for our residents and visitors. Raising pedestrian safety awareness in the state will continue helping reach the goal of achieving 0 pedestrian fatalities. Additionally, as mayor of the city of Marraine, I've taken official steps to support the initiative by issuing a proclamation declaring Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day in our city. This proclamation underscores the city's dedication to honoring Ruby Bridges, courage, and reinforcing the importance of inclusive education and safety in our schools and communities. Senate Bill 526 will further institutionalize the efforts of ensuring that every public school in Maryland has the opportunity to commemorate Ruby Bridges and engage students in learning about ongoing struggles for education equity, as well as raising awareness of pedestrian safety and saving lives. So this is when we need you guys to partner with us as municipalities in the state to make sure we continue bringing awareness. So we urge for a favorable report on Senate Bill 526. Thank you.
Okay, just for the record, you didn't give us your full name. I know who you are, but just for the video and recording, you didn't give us.
Say your full name.
Yeah, you didn't give us your full name when you started.
I apologize.
That's okay.
I'm Mayor Selena Benitez, City of Rainier.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Meyer, you want to go next?
Thank you, Timothy Meyer. Thank you to Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, committee members, Senator Washington, and also to our House sponsor, Delegate Diana Fennell. Also, thanks to everyone who submitted favorable testimony, students, parents, municipal leaders, covering Baltimore City, Howard County, Montgomery, Prince George's, and more throughout the state. I've been a PTO leader for 7 years, and Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day is easily the most meaningful, impactful event we have done. The day helps to bring communities together, and our school invites special guests to read to students and teach Ruby's story to every classroom. Hallways are decorated with Ruby Bridges-inspired artwork. One year, we partnered with a local business to design custom shirts honoring Ruby. Ruby's historic walk is also uniquely American, and it's part of Maryland's history as an important continuation of Thurgood Marshall's legacy on Brown v. Board of Education. It can also help create safer streets, which is really the intent behind this legislation. This issue hit home when 2 students were killed walking to a nearby school a few years ago, as Senator Washington mentioned. After that, I was one of 2 parents who served on our county's school pedestrian safety work group, meeting for 6 months, creating a detailed list of 18 recommendations to improve safety around schools. Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day and other means of raising awareness were some of the most important. And at a time of tight budgets, this bill is a real win that will make our kids safer at almost no cost at all. Maryland can become the 4th state to pass Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day legislation, and I'm proud to report that the House passed it this morning with 119 votes. I asked for a favorable report and the opportunity to send Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day to the full Senate for an up or down vote, and I look forward to any questions from the committee. Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you. Why don't we just pull up our 2 virtual witnesses favorable, and then we'll take some questions. Robin, okay, is Corey Johnson? We're going to take Corey Johnson. I think you're in the queue. Corey? Okay, Corey, why don't you've got up to 2 minutes, and you got to unmute yourself there. You're signed up straight favorable, and you can start.
Great, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Nice to be with you. I am testifying today in strong favor of Bill 526, which would designate Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. I'm supporting this bill as a Maryland resident and on behalf of my workplace, the Safe Routes Partnership. I was born and raised in Columbia, and I'm a proud graduate of Howard County Public Schools. And as a child, had the privilege of being part of a diverse, multicultural community, living in walkable neighborhoods, and receiving a top-tier public school education. So by officially recognizing Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, we can show that our state continues to be a leader in high-quality, inclusive education and youth-centered pedestrian safety. Currently, I'm the Senior Program and Engagement Manager at the Safe Routes Partnership, which is a national organization that works to make it safer and easier for kids to walk, bike, and roll to school, including events like Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. Each year on November 14th, hundreds of thousands of students across the country commemorate Ruby Bridge's historic walk by walking, biking, and rolling to their school and discussing how they can make positive changes in their communities. Our organization awarded $80,000 in grant funding to communities to organize Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day celebrations, including 2 in Maryland last year. And last year, over 2,000 Maryland students participated in Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day celebrations, joining 800,000 young people across the country who are participating in their own local events. One of our Maryland grantees commented, Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day unified our community and reinforced a powerful truth that every student deserves to feel seen, empowered, and worthy of the education they receive. I strongly urge the committee and the Senate to pass this bill this legislative session and to keep Maryland a safe, great place for students to live, learn, play, and travel. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Johnson. Okay, now we'll take some questions for Senator Washington or the 3 witnesses. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, that concludes Bill here.
This is a great committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We are a great committee. Senate Bill 526. And next, let's go take some Brooks bills next, and then we're going to end up with some Harris bills, so we're going to stay in-house here. Okay, Senator Brooks, we're going to start maybe with Senate Bill 402, if that works for you. Okay, and I got 3 sponsor panelists, Nick Steigerwald, Barbara Zechnick, and Frank Patinella. Those are your 3 sponsor panelists. Those are the witnesses on the bill. Again, Senate Bill 402. Whenever you're ready, you can begin.
Thank you, Chair. Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and my awesome committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you on Senate Bill 402. For the record, I'm Senator Ben Brooks, representing the 10th Legislative District in Baltimore County. Senate Bill 402, that's a residential care, child care program, education of children and training children and youth care practitioners. Children living in foster care are at a higher risk of dropping out of high school and are substantially less likely to attend or graduate from college than their peers. SB 402 responds to this shortcoming by ensuring that children in residential child care programs receive comprehensive educational support, and that the residential child and youth care practitioners are fully trained to deliver the highest quality care and outcomes. The bill establishes reasonable requirements for educational support that benefits students, including regular scheduled study time, assistance with coursework, support that aligns with a 504 plan or an IEP or individualized education program, and encouragement to participate in extracurricular activities. SB 402 also enumerates a list of important topics that must be completed in the RCYCP training program, ensuring that staff possesses the necessary tools of support all children with diverse lived experiences and needs. As Maryland strives to provide a world-class education to all of the state students, the General Assembly must not overlook one of the most vulnerable groups amongst them, children living in residential care homes. SB 402 takes practical, targeted steps to support these students by strengthening educational services within residential programs and ensuring youth practitioners are properly trained to help each child reach their full potential. We appreciate the insight of the Maryland Department of Human Resource Services and have accepted all of their proposed amendments, as well as the technical amendments offered by the Maryland Department of Disabilities Council. For these reasons, I respectfully request a favorable report on SB 402.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Steigerwald. Why don't we take you next? And each of you will be on the up to 2-minute clock, so why don't you start?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Nicholas Steigerwald. I'm here with Turnaround. We are a designated rape crisis center for Baltimore City and Baltimore County, comprehensive domestic violence and anti-human trafficking service provider for the region. We also operate Maryland's first comprehensive anti-trafficking program and serve as a key partner to state and local agencies seeking to improve outcomes for vulnerable youth in residential settings. Our Monarch program is a state-licensed therapeutic residential program serving children and youth ages 13 to 17 who have been victimized through human trafficking, providing care in undisclosed, safe 24/7 settings staffed by a team trained in trauma-informed care and the complex needs of this population. Educational support is central to the Monarch model. Staff work closely with schools and other partners to maintain continuity of education, supporting individualized plans, and integrate educational goals into daily programming and discharge planning. This program offers a concrete example of how residential childcare programs can successfully embody the goals of SB 402. Children in residential programs, including those impacted by abuse, neglect, trafficking, and juvenile system involvement, have often experienced multiple systems that were not designed for their needs in mind. Without clear statutory expectations, educational opportunities can become fragmented, and frontline staff may not receive the depth of training necessary to respond to trauma-related behaviors, learning differences, and safety risks. This bill strengthens Maryland's commitment to educational sustainability and success for children in residential to actively support enrollment and meaningful encouragement and engagement with schools. We support the bill's requirement for residential providers to ensure scheduled study time and assistance with homework. We request a favorable report.
Hey, Ms. Seknick, why don't you go next?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Barbara Zektik. I'm here today on behalf of the Maryland Coalition of Families. This is a statewide nonprofit organization that provides family peer support services at no cost to families who have a child or other loved one with a mental health, substance abuse, or problem gambling disorder. MCF represents the voice of thousands of Maryland families who love someone with a behavioral health challenge, and the children of many of our staff and their families we support have been placed in residential care at some point in their young lives. This bill speaks directly to the need that the families have seen firsthand. Children are placed in residential care because they are experiencing a behavioral health crisis that requires a temporary removal from their home, their community, and their school. They arrive at these facilities after a series of events that are often traumatic and disruptive to them and their families. Their placement in residential care is intended to restore stability and teach them essential skills to manage their behavioral health needs. Essentially, their lives are put on hold while they tend to their emotional well-being, and this pause comes at a cost, particularly to education. By the time that the young person returns to school in their community, they have fallen behind their peers academically and lose connection to activities that build their confidence, teach valuable life skills, and promote positive social relationships. This bill will ensure that children placed in residential care facilities have the opportunity to remain engaged with their educational goals as well as their extracurricular activities. This bill bridges the gap between a child's customary school setting and their residential one. Regularly scheduled time to study, assistance with homework assignments, projects, and test preparation, and support for ensuring the child's individualized education plans or 504 plan goals are met will provide crucial continuity and mitigate the possibility that they will fall behind academically. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Mr. Patinella.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Frank Patinella, Senior Policy Advocate for the ACLU of Maryland, and we strongly support Senate Bill 402. The House version, House Bill 396, is broad bipartisan support and just passed out of the Ways and Means Committee with a unanimous vote yesterday. I'm going to spend a moment to lay out the data to illustrate the urgency of passing this bill. Currently, there are over 1,800 children in some form of foster care. in our state. Roughly equal representation of boys and girls, but Black children are overrepresented among this population, making up around 60% of the total. White children make up 23% and 9% for Latinx children. In terms of MCAP scores, we see similar outcomes for foster children across the grades from elementary through high school. For English language arts in 24, only 21% of foster children achieve proficiency, compared to between 48% proficiency for the general population. For math, the results are quite staggering. On average, less than 6% are proficient, compared to the 24% for the general population. In terms of what we're seeing over time, these proficiency rates appear to be stagnant over recent years. So we're not seeing a trend towards improvement. On suspensions, students in foster care are suspended at 2 times the rate as the general population. Absenteeism, just over 30% of the population were chronically absent, which is not much higher than the statewide rate of 27% for the general population. But it's worth noting that in Baltimore City schools, the chronic absentee rate for foster children is double the statewide average, and this district also has nearly 38% of the total foster students statewide. In graduation, only 65% of foster youth graduate high school, compared to 86% of the general population. And this affects post-secondary enrollment in college training programs, and I'll stop there. You have my testimony, and I'll close by saying that we're not seeing the needle move for this population. Time to get intentional about supporting them. Please pass the bill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Senator Brooks or the 3 witnesses? Okay, seeing none, that concludes bill hearing on Senate Bill 402. Senator Brooks, we're going to pivot to Senate Bill 592, and I'm going to call, you've got some witnesses signed up as part of your sponsor panel, so we'll start with them. We've got Nizaya Osaya, okay, Josh White, Susan Bistranson, and then we do have a virtual, is Christian Sherrill on there? Okay. Okay. We do have 2. Is the informational virtual witness? Yes. Okay, well, we'll leave that one. Okay, we do have one additional witness in person favorable, so maybe we'll call, is Kimberly Hamilton here? Okay, why don't you just come up? You're straight favorable, so why don't you just join this panel? Okay, Senator Brooks, we're on Senate Bill 592, and you can proceed.
Thank you, Chair Feldman, and members of my committee for the opportunity to testify on Senate Bill 592, financial literacy graduation requirements. For the record, I'm still Senator Ben Brooks, 10th District in Baltimore County. Senate Bill 592 requires the beginning with the graduating class of 2030, students complete a standalone 1-semester course in financial literacy aligned with the Maryland's existing state standards. Today, access to financial literacy varies widely across the district. In some systems, it is embedded in other courses, and in others, it may be an elective, and in some cases, exposure is minimal. As a result, not every student leaves high school prepared to manage credit, understand loans, file taxes, prepare budgets responsibly, or avoid predatory financial practices. SB 592 ensures consistency, that every student, regardless of the zip code, graduates with practical, real-world financial skills. This bill makes financial literacy foundational, not optional. I also want to address concerns raised by local control. SB 592 does not dictate curriculum, materials, lesson plans, or instructional approach. It does not remove authority from local boards. The state already establishes graduation requirements in core subject areas. This bill simply adds financial literacy to that list. The state defines what is required for a Maryland diploma. Local districts determine how to deliver it, and the balance remains intact under this bill. Financial literacy is about economic empowerment, and long-term stability. If we expect our students to navigate student loans, credit cards, and complex financial systems immediately after graduation, we have a responsibility to ensure that they are prepared. For that reason, I respectfully urge a favorable report on SB 592.
Thank you, Senator Brooks. Mr. White, you want to go next, Josh?
Thank you, sir. Chairman Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, members of the committee, my name is Josh White on behalf of Next Gen Personal Finance. They are a national nonprofit providing free personal finance curriculum and teacher training. And on behalf of Next Gen, we want to thank Senator Brooks for his years of leadership on this issue. And for over 20 years, Maryland has debated whether or not they'll guarantee every high school student a standalone personal finance course. However, the need for student financial literacy is not debatable. In the past few years, a number of states have made this commitment, has grown rapidly to 30 states, with many ready to act. Study after study shows that students who complete a standalone personal finance course have significantly better financial outcomes in early childhood, in early adulthood. This includes higher credit scores, lower delinquency rates, and less reliance on high-cost debt. Research estimates that the single semester course can deliver $100,000 in lifetime financial benefit per student. Opponents of the bill agree student financial literacy is very important. They acknowledge its value, and they recognize the bill preserves local flexibility in curriculum and implementation. And their objection is not about how the bill is structured, it is about the legislative requirement. However, if the State Board of Education will not provide a standalone financial literacy course, we respectfully ask the legislature to take the lead. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to our next witness.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, and the committee. My name is Susan Bestranson, and I retired from Prince George's County Public Schools after 38 years of service as a classroom teacher and program coordinator for our financial literacy program. I'm strongly in favor of Bill 592, making financial literacy a course required for graduation. Let me begin by stating what we all know is true. Financial education is essential to every Maryland citizen. During my teaching career, I've heard from students, parents, educators, university professors, and even a retired Supreme Court justice that said financial education is imperative and all students need to be doing this. Maryland has a great financial set of standards from 2011. We have put this up many, many times. This is my fourth time before this committee to say how important this is. Prince George's County mandated financial literacy as a graduation requirement in 2024. We have lots of wonderful data on how to implement it and to show that students understand that this is a relevant course to them, and that's what makes it very, very important. So why should you vote for this bill? Well, the 2024 research study that showed the average lifetime return on investment for students in a high school graduation course was $100,000. When they broke it down by state, Maryland was at the top position at $129,000. If you're a parent, you want your child prepared for adulthood. If you're a business owner, you need responsible employees who understand their paycheck and appreciate it. If you're a college professor, you want your adult students to succeed in their education and not be bogged down by debt, because your credit report is your lifelong report card. And many people are suffering economic hardship. It doesn't matter how much money you make, a lot or a little. Everyone needs to know how to manage their life and live within their means, and high school financial literacy can make that possible. So I ask for a favorable report on Senate Bill 592.
Okay, thank you. Let's go. How about you, ma'am? Why don't you go first, and then we'll end up at the end of the table, okay? So why don't you tell us your name, and you can have up to 2 minutes.
Sure. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Kimberly Hamilton. I'm an accredited financial counselor, personal finance author, and resident of Montgomery County. I also lead financial education at Rocket Money, a personal finance app based in Maryland that helps millions of Americans improve their financial lives. I'm testifying today in my personal capacity in favor of Senate Bill 592, a bill that's not just about college preparedness, but about building skills that last a lifetime. As a financial professional, I see firsthand that most financial struggles do not stem from a lack of income or effort. They stem from never being taught how money works. Today's students graduate into a financial world they must navigate immediately. Credit cards, student loans, insurance, and taxes, all while facing rising costs of living, potential scams, and an increasingly complex job market. The choices they make within these systems will shape their lives, where they can afford to live, how much they spend or save, and their ability to build long-term stability. I've had clients who as young adults took on debt without understanding the impacts of interest or credit scores. Others enter the workforce and miss out on years of wealth building, intimidated by investing. Making this education a standalone requirement can help students make strategic decisions and avoid costly mistakes from the start. It's so important that 30 states have already made requirements to do so. As a financial educator, I believe Maryland students deserve that same opportunity. As a mother, I urge you not to let the students fall behind. With the passage of Senate Bill 592, you can ensure Maryland students graduate prepared not just for college, but for the financial decisions that will shape the rest of their lives. I respectfully urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to our final witness at the table.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Vice Chair and the rest of the committee. My name is Naziah Osai. I am a Maryland resident and a 2020 graduate from Parkdale High in Prince George's County, Maryland. Ms. Bestranson was actually my financial literacy teacher when I took it my junior year of high school. But the thing is, back then it was an elective. I didn't sign up for the course, nor did I even know it existed. And I'll be honest, at 16, I probably wouldn't have signed up for a financial literacy class. But it turned out to be the most important class I had ever taken. But I was merely in the class by chance. But what's not by chance is the need to budget your money every day, to know how to file your taxes, how to manage debt, whether to buy a car, buy a home, or take on debt to go to college and hopefully lift yourself and your family from systemic poverty. Today's kids understand the world that's ahead of them. It's kind of hard to miss it with everything with AI, easy access to gambling, and the fear that your financial future is not as certain as it was for past generations. Financial literacy has changed my life. I don't know any other way that it would be without it. It's decisions that I have to make every single day. And every time I tell people about my story, they all say, man, I wish I would have had that class when I was your age. I would have been better off, would have avoided all these different mistakes. And I ask myself, when will we end that saying of, I wish I had it? The resources are there. Many of us agree that it's a logical thing that we need. And we can all understand that our financial system isn't going to get any less complicated in the coming years. So why not prepare these students for the world that we said that they have to go into when they turn 18, but we're not going to give them the vital skills to even have a chance to succeed in it? So I urge you all today to support this bill if you also support the future of our kids in the state of Maryland. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, before we go to our information purposes only witness from New York City, we're going to take questions, Senator Brooks and the panel, and we're going to start with Senator Watson.
Hey, thank you for that, and thank you for Prince George's County. One question for you, since you recently retired and you went through her course, right? So, in your opinion right now, does Prince George's County have it right when it comes to financial literacy? I think it's a half a credit that is required for graduation. One, is that enough? And because I understand you'll hear from Pazam and Maeve and everything, everybody wants to do their own thing. Years ago when I talked to the superintendent, it was, do we create a discrete course or do we weave financial literacy in the coursework we already have? And that's kind of dubious. I kind of like a more discrete approach because I know exactly, what we're getting. So again, my question is, how was Prince George's County faring in implementing their graduate requirement financial literacy?
I'm so glad you asked that because Prince George's County is an example of how to do it. What we did, we worked with Next Gen Personal Finance, with Maryland Council, and we created a very strong curriculum using curriculum partners. We implemented it through, we grandfathered it in. So we voted it in 2020. We had between 21 and 24 to make it mandatory, and our class of 24 was the first that was required to have it on their transcript. The concerns that were raised was teacher training. There's an abundance of free teacher training, and virtually any teacher could teach this if they are willing to be trained to do it. It's an exciting course. It's a relevant course, and the students recognize its relevance. I think that's probably the best thing about it. When we were trying to get this initiative going in Prince George's County, Neziah and many, many students from student government went to the school board and demanded to have this added to their schedule as a mandate. I mean, how many kids ask for more graduation requirements? They understood the importance of this. And you can't find anybody who will tell you any different, that it's not. So basically, we implemented a support structure for the teachers, and I was the person in charge of doing that. So I ran monthly meetings, voluntary meetings for the teachers to sit and discuss what's going. We called them the chat and chew. We had paid opportunities for professional development from all of our curriculum partners throughout the year. We had a wonderful financial advisory committee that is still in force, helping out with support of all different sorts of initiatives. We had support from the business community, from educators, from everybody. Over the 3 years of us grandfathering in, we saw a consistent rise in test scores. EverFi was one of our curriculum partners, and they do a certificate at the end of completion. We saw a huge increase in EverFi certification over the course. We have 26 schools, and I think we had 2 that had 100% certification of all their kids, and it was really way up there. And the wonderful thing about the people that we work with, they provide us data. What are the learning gains that we have seen? And the learning gains that came to us from EverFi were tremendous. Our students participated in the Maryland Council's Economic Education Challenge, Personal Finance Challenge, I'm sorry. We had students in Prince George's County actually participate, which they hadn't ever done before. And through this encouragement and work with the teachers, they either met or exceeded the state average in all of the categories and were a leader in one of the 6 categories.
Gotcha.
So just lots of wonderful success stories.
Got it. I appreciate that. Thank you for what you do. And Mr. Chair, a special shout out to my friend Delegate Jay Walker, who was a real champion when I was in the House next to him related to financial literacy. Thank you for all you do. Appreciate you.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions for this panel? Okay, thank you, Senator Brooks, and to the panel for your testimony. We do have from New York, I mentioned Jennifer Raphaels from the College Board. Is she still on the queue? Okay. Jennifer, you're still there? We're going to get you in. As soon as you unmute yourself, you're going to be on the 2-minute clock, and you're here on behalf of the College Board, and you want to weigh in, and you're just for information purposes only. You're testifying, okay?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jen Raphaels, and I'm the Director of AP Business with Personal Finance, Curriculum and Assessment at the College Board. I'm also a former personal finance teacher. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on Senate Bill 592. I'd like to briefly provide context on AP Business with Personal Finance and how it aligns with the goals of this legislation. AP Business with Personal Finance is a rigorous college-level course that integrates foundational business principles with comprehensive personal finance content, including budgeting, saving and investing, managing credit, managing risk, taxation, and financial planning. Students complete analytical coursework aligned to college expectations while developing practical financial literacy skills that they can apply immediately. They also have the opportunity to earn college credit, which may reduce post-secondary costs and accelerate time to degree. The course aligns with all of Maryland's personal financial literacy standards. It delivers both the substance and depth envisioned by the bill. If Maryland establishes a personal finance graduation requirement, we respectfully suggest centering the policy on demonstrated mastery of state standards rather than prescribing a single course structure. Focusing on outcomes on what students know and are able to do, preserves flexibility for districts and educators while ensuring that state standards for financial literacy are met. As drafted, certain technical provisions related to course structure and delivery would unintentionally exclude AP Business with Personal Finance from satisfying the requirement, despite its alignment to state standards. We welcome the opportunity to work collaboratively with Senator Brooks and the committee to ensure access to AP Business with Personal Finance. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions about the course.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for our virtual witness? Okay, seeing none, that's going to conclude the bill here on Senate Bill 592. Thanks to everybody for presenting testimony. We come to the last Brooks bill, where we pivot to the Harris bills. Senator Brooks, we're going to go now to Senate Bill 593. And I'm going to call your sponsor panel witnesses: Laura Hale, Patrice Bullock, William Marbray. Then we have one virtual witness, and Keith Shaw, which we'll take last. So Senator Brooks, we're on Senate Bill 593.
Okay, thank you, Chair Feldman, and my august committee for the opportunity to testify before you on Senate Bill 593. For the record, I'm Senator Ben Brooks, representing the 10th Legislative District in Baltimore County. Senate Bill 593, Student Athletic Activities, Physical Examinations, and Cardiovascular Pre-Screening. SB 593 is a straightforward but critical measure that requires cardiovascular pre-screening as part of the physical fitness examination for students participating in intercollegiate athletics. Intense physical exertion can exacerbate underlying heart conditions, placing students with undiagnosed cardiovascular issues at serious risk. Research shows that high school athletes experience sudden cardiac arrest at a rate more than 350% higher than their non-athletic peers. This bill builds upon the important work already undertaken by the Maryland General Assembly to prevent cardiovascular-related deaths in school athletics. In 2024, the General Assembly enacted the Bailey-Bullock Act, which required public and non-public schools to establish cardiac emergency response plan. SB 593 complements that effort by shifting the focus upstream, prioritizing prevention and early identification of risk rather than relying solely on emergency response after a crisis occurs. In May 2024, the Maryland Public Secondary School Athletic Association adopted a participation physical examination form that includes cardiovascular pre-screening and guidance for referrals to cardiology when warranted. SB 593 strengthens and formalizes this process by establishing these pre-screening practices in statute and extending them to students participating in non-public interscholastic athletics. The bill also expands existing cardiac arrest awareness requirements to non-public schools, ensuring that coaches, school personnel, students, and parents receive consistent evidence-based information. This includes education on warning signs, the danger of playing through symptoms, and the importance of timely medical evaluations, providing all student athletes equitable access to potentially life-saving knowledge. SB 593 enhances the safety of Maryland students athletes by mandating cardiovascular pre-screening as part of every pre-participation physical examination. By identifying risk earlier and promoting awareness across all school settings, this bill takes a proactive and responsible step to protect students before tragedy strikes. We're working collaboratively with the Maryland Department of Health on clarifying amendments to address technical concerns and confirm that the pre-screening is intended to coincide with the annual physicals. For that reason, I respectfully request a favorable report on SB 593. Now I'll turn it over to my panelists.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hale, who wants to go first? You want to go first? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and honorable members of the committee. For the record, my name is Laura Hale. I'm the Director of Government Relations with the American Heart Association, and we stand in strong support of this legislation. This legislation truly builds on the great work that this committee has already done in making sure that kids are safe when they play sports at our middle and high schools. But as the good senator noted, it's important that we not only have the plan in place when an emergency happens, but are able to identify students prior to a potential emergency. And so what this legislation does is that it fits into the structure that already exists within for our middle and high school athletes around their sports physicals. And when they go and get a physical, we ask additional clarifying questions. The Heart Association and the American College of Cardiologists have come up with already a great list of questions that can be utilized by providers, as well as there is a form that the Maryland School Athletic Association has put forward as well that looks at some of these questions. From the follow-up of these questions, they can then determine are additional checks need to be done to make sure does this child need additional screening before they play. But the questions alone really can help weed out and see what does a child need and how we can catch something before something unspeakable happens. We also know that this is very, very effective, and this legislation is an evidence-based approach that empowers families and healthcare professionals to decide together what's best and help every student athlete stay healthy, safe, and in the game from preseason to playoffs. We ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hale. Let's go to our additional two witnesses here. Go on.
Good afternoon, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the committee. My name is Patrice Bullock, and I am the mother of Bailey Bullock, who passed away from sudden cardiac arrest after track practice. I am here today because I want to identify every child at risk of sudden cardiac arrest. Sudden cardiac death is the leading cause of death in student athletes, yet many underlying heart conditions go undetected. Most families simply do not know there's a problem until the unthinkable happens. SB 593 strengthens the protection our students deserve by making sure the sports physicals they already receive include a thorough heart assessment, a review of personal and family history, and a physical exam. This evidence-based approach is supported by the American Heart Association and leading cardiology organizations because it helps identify issues early before they become emergencies. And as we all know, even with screenings, emergencies still happen. That's why this bill also builds on the Bailey-Bullock Act to ensure schools have strong cardiac response plans, quick CPR, immediate access to an AED, and a clear plan to act fast. These steps save lives. This legislation gives families information, gives schools tools, and gives student athletes a safer chance to play the sport they love. For Bailey and for every child, I respectfully ask for a favorable report on SB 593. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so, young man, you're going to testify next, and you've got the 2-minute clock.
Awesome. How you guys doing today? Hello, Chair Feldman and Vice Chair Kagan and the rest of the EEE Committee. My name is William Marbury, and I'm a sophomore at St. Mary's College of Maryland in St. Mary's County, Maryland. I'm grateful for the opportunity to tell you why I believe Senate Bill 593 is incredibly important to me and will help all high school athletes in our state. On February 19, 2022, out of nowhere, I collapsed to the turf during a soccer game and went into sudden cardiac arrest. At that point, I've been playing soccer for around 12 years and never experienced signs of having any issues with my heart. Fortunately for me, within minutes, I was given CPR and AED shocks, and my life was saved by a parent volunteer. I was then transported by ambulance to Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, Maryland, and within days I had open heart surgery to repair the cause of my cardiac arrest. Miraculously, 7 short months after surgery, I had fully recovered and was back on the field playing the sport that I love for the rest of high school, and now I play at the collegiate level for my school's NCAA Division III soccer program. In 2022, before my cardiac arrest, I was a healthy high school and club soccer player. Whenever my parents took me for my annual checkup or sports physical, we always responded no to questions about experiencing any heart-related symptoms because I generally had never felt any symptoms before. As it turned out, however, I had a congenital heart defect that had gone completely undetected, even though I had been a highly active athlete throughout my years of schooling. My experience is supported by national studies that say only about 30% of athletes who had a sudden cardiac arrest experience any physical warning signs beforehand. That means that up to 70% of athletes who experience a sudden cardiac arrest are like me and had never felt symptoms and maybe even had a heart condition that was undetected before tragedy struck. Statistics like these make requiring cardiac screenings paramount because doing so will allow heart defects to be detected before it is way too late. It will also keep high school students in our state healthier and give families a peace of mind. Even though I am very blessed to be alive and testifying in front of you all today, I cannot act as though I'm not extremely fortunate. Across our nation and in this state, far too many young athletes have lost their lives due to sudden cardiac arrests. I'm testifying today because I believe that submitting a favorable report for Senate Bill 593, requiring high school students in Maryland to get cardiac pre-screenings before participating in high school sports, will help make progress towards saving and supporting the lives of Maryland students and families in the state. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, before we get Mr. Shaw, where do you play? Where do you play?
St. Mary's College of Maryland.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, Mr. Shaw, you're going to be the final witness on the bill, and you're signed up straight favorable, and you're part of the panel. So why don't you begin?
Thanks very much. Chair Feldman and members of the Senate Education, Energy, and Environment Committee. My name is Dr. Ankit Shah. I'm a sports cardiologist and president of Sports and Performance Cardiology. I'm also chair-elect of the Sports and Exercise Section Leadership Council of the American College of Cardiology. I'm here today on behalf of the Maryland chapter of the American College of Cardiology in support of Senate Bill 593. Sudden cardiac arrest in young athletes is rare, but when it occurs, it's devastating. We know that the most effective response includes a strong emergency action plan, trained personnel, and accessible AEDs. Those measures saved lives, but we have to also focus on prevention. Senate Bill 593 takes a practical and guideline-based step by requiring that student athletes' pre-participation physical exams include a cardiac screening component. The goal of cardiac screening is not to overtest or create unnecessary barriers to sports participation. Rather, it's to identify warning signs: chest pain, unexplained fainting, family history that's concerning, that may indicate an underlying heart condition associated with sudden cardiac arrest. A focused cardiac history and physical exam can detect symptomatic athletes with previously unrecognized disease, as well as those with inherited cardiovascular conditions. When concerns arise, further evaluation remains at the discretion of the treating clinician. This approach, as outlined in Senate Bill 593, balances vigilance with practicality. Cardiac screening based on the history and physical examination is recommended by both the American College of Cardiology and the American Heart Association, and several states and state interscholastic associations have already incorporated similar requirements into their athletic physicals. By strengthening the existing pre-participation evaluation to include cardiac screening, we can improve early detection, increase awareness of signs and symptoms of cardiac disease among athletes, families, coaches, and the schools, and better protect Maryland student athletes. This also ensures that the next steps and the decision for additional cardiac testing remain at the healthcare provider's clinical judgment. I respectfully urge the committee to give Senate Bill 593 a favorable report. Thanks for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Shaw. Okay, questions for Dr. Shaw virtually. Senator Brooks, the three panelists on Senate Bill 593. Senator Watson.
Hey, for Dr. Shaw, what does pre-screening actually look like in practice? How do you take a child and put them through the process?
So there's recommendations essentially for the cardiac. It's called a 14-point history and physical exam. So you ask them questions about, are they having any symptoms, chest pain, pressure, tightness, have they passed out? Have they have any family history specific to cardiac conditions, genetic conditions that we specifically ask about? Has anyone died unexpectedly early, 30s, 40s, and cousins included, that might sort of trigger us to think about, do they have a susceptibility or risk of having a genetic condition? And then you do a focused physical exam that looks at listening at murmurs and other features that may be associated with conditions that can cause cardiac arrest.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, doctor. That was very informative. Additional questions for Senator Brooks or the panel? Okay, seeing none, that's going to conclude the bill hearing on Senate Bill 593. We're going to now pivot to some Senator Harris bills, starting with Senate Bill 529, and I I do see you, Chancellor Perman, patiently been sitting here listening to EEE activities. So, okay, I'm going to call up some witnesses, including Chancellor Perman, Yolanda Wilson. We do have some virtual witnesses. Let's see. Yeah, okay, well, let's take our in-person testimony first, then we'll move to, we've got 2 virtual witnesses on your panel, Senator Harris. So, Senator Harris, we're on Senate Bill 529, then we'll go to Chancellor Perman, and then Yolanda Wilson. And
appreciate it.
Sir, who are you? Who are you?
Dale Nesbury, USM SM.
Okay, that's fine. Just have a seat. All good.
Appreciate that, Chair. So good afternoon, everyone. It looks like I am bringing us home on these final bills. Chair, Vice Chair, and members of this awesome committee. For the record, Senator Kevin M. Harris, representing Legislative District 27, which includes Prince George's, Charles, and Calvert County, here to present Senate Bill 529, Southern Maryland Early College Teacher Pathway Program Work Group Establishment. Senate Bill 529 established the Southern Maryland Early College Teacher Pathway Program, a structured, credit-bearing pathway that allows high school students to begin preparing for careers as teachers in Maryland public elementary and secondary schools. This bill addresses a critical gap causing the region both talent and teachers. In Southern Maryland, teachers are already stepping forward to become educators. They are participating in early college, enrolling in Teacher Academy of Maryland, and earning an associate's degree in teaching. But for students who want to pursue bachelor's degree in high-need fields like secondary education, special education, or English for speakers of other languages, the pathway stops. These bachelor's degrees are not available locally, so students are forced to leave the region to finish their preparation, and many do not return. This gap directly contributes to teacher shortage and continued reliance on conditioning licensed teachers in our schools. Senate Bill 529 closes this gap by creating intentional credit-bearing pathways that begin in high school and lead directly to a bachelor's degree program in teaching professions, particularly for students from rural communities and populations historically underrepresented in post-secondary education. Senate Bill 529 strengthens and preserves the intent of the blueprint for Maryland future for expanding access, affordability, and the opportunity for students. Beginning in Southern Maryland, the bill leveraged the power of regional solutions while creating a model that can be evaluated and scaled statewide. The program was developed through collaborations among the Maryland State Department of Education, the Maryland Higher Education Commission, and the University System of Maryland, and supported by Southern Maryland Early College Teacher Pathway Program Work Group to ensure coordinated planning, regional input, and thoughtful implementation. Senate Bill 529 is forward-looking investment in students, educators, and Mariners public schools. It removes financial barriers, supports early preparation for teaching professions, and helps build stronger, more sustainable educator workforce. For this reason, I respectfully urge a favorable report, and thank you for your consideration. And I know as some may have looked at our lovely fiscal note for 2028 and 2029, we have worked through that with the team, and we was able to cut that by half, a little bit more than half, to $150K. And now I turn it over to this awesome panel.
Here, why don't we start with you, Mr. Chancellor, and then we'll just go down the table. So why don't you proceed on Senate Bill 529?
Thank you, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, committee members. I am USM Chancellor Jay Perman, deeply honored to be joined by Southern Maryland's education leaders to speak in favor of Senate Bill 529. All of us at this table believe we're obligated to make sure that nothing prevents Maryland students from pursuing higher education, not background or income or zip code. And early college is one of the most powerful tools we have to meet that obligation. And Southern Maryland is well positioned to prove its efficacy in that matter. My colleagues here today represent years of collaboration among Southern Maryland's K-12 schools its community college, and its regional higher education center, all working together to strengthen a pipeline that shepherds and supports students to a 4-year degree. But for students who want to themselves become educators, there's a clear gap. While elementary education pathways exist locally, those pathways don't exist for secondary education, special education, English for speakers of other languages, and other high-field needs, as Senator Harris has pointed out. And as Senator Harris also pointed out, that means that students must leave the region for a bachelor's degree, and they don't always come back. Southern Maryland feels that loss every day in persistent teacher vacancies, vacancies that hurt its schools and its students. Senate Bill 529 counteracts this workforce drain with a clear and local pathway into college, one that cuts the time and cost that students spend in earning a degree. The governor supports this early college approach, and I know it meets his expectation that we be strategy rich. In blueprint funding, apprenticeship programs, grow your own grants, Maryland already has dedicated money for this work. And with a focused strategy, we can leverage these existing resources to build and test a model that is scalable across the state. In other words, this investment in a Southern Maryland pilot allows us to show the rest of Maryland how early college can help solve our teacher workforce crisis. I ask on behalf of the USM for a favorable report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chancellor. Let's go to the College of Southern Maryland team. And I'm not going to put you guys on the clock. Just I think we're good. Just give us what you got, okay?
Thank you, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Yolanda Wilson, the proud president of the College of Southern Maryland. From the community college perspective, Senate Bill 529 strengthens the teacher pipeline at its very beginning with access. Maryland is experiencing a significant teacher shortage, and the data are stark. The 2024-2025 school year began with 1,619 teacher vacancies statewide, and 6,074 teachers, roughly 10% of the workforce, are serving under conditional licenses. In STEM fields especially, local education agencies reported more than 76 vacancies and over 738 STEM teachers working on conditional licenses in the 24-25 school year. These shortages directly affect rural regions like Southern Maryland, where our proximity to one of the nation's highest concentrations of STEM jobs demands a robust, well-prepared educator pipeline. Community colleges are uniquely positioned to help reverse these trends. At CSM, our dual enrollment and early college partnerships with Calvert, Charles, and St. Mary's counties expand access to college-level coursework while students are still in high school, reducing barriers, accelerating degree completion, and improving transfer and wage outcomes, particularly for underserved students. Recognizing both the urgency and the opportunity, we have partnered with the St. Mary's County Public Schools to launch an Associate of Arts in Teaching pathway at our Leonardtown campus. Students can now begin their teacher preparation locally and affordably, but too many complete a bachelor's degree without leaving the region, cannot complete it. That's the gap that Senate 529 closes. It creates a seamless, local, affordable 2+2 pathway that keeps aspiring educators in Southern Maryland, where they are needed and where data show that they are most likely to remain and teach. This is not about competition among institutions. This is about collaboration. Collaboration to address a statewide teacher shortage and a collaboration to improve a regional STEM workforce imperative. On behalf of the College of Southern Maryland and the students we serve, I respectfully ask that you support Senate Bill 529.
Thank you, Madam President. Let's go to you, sir.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Senators, for giving us the opportunity to present to you today. I am Dale Nesbury. I'm Executive Director of the University System of Maryland, Southern Maryland Center, and I am here in support of Senate Bill 529. And my primary reason for being here is to serve as proof of concept that early college programs help students succeed. By way of background, I came out of retirement to lead the center after 4 years, but the 13 years prior to that, I was president of Muskegon Community College in Muskegon, Michigan, and there we mounted 4 early college programs in 4 separate counties, serving thousands of students over a 13-year period. To me, one of the most important things that I can do as an educator is to help young people grow. And it's enough to have me come out of retirement to help the system in any way that I could and help our regional partners succeed in this manner. Now, what did early college do for us back in Michigan, and what can it do here? It provided significant cost savings for students, most importantly to me, especially given the testimony that was given earlier today. Simplification of credit transfer from community college to universities, regional on-site center, a place where students can actually attend school in Southern Maryland, not having to drive hour and a half to the closest university in our system. Enhanced academic support, accelerated degree completion, and expedited workforce readiness. So with that, I very much, again, like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak today, and I support Senate Bill 529, and hopefully it will move through the system. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You know, before we take questions, why don't we pull up we've got 2 virtual witnesses calling in part of your sponsor panel, and they're straight favorable, so let's get their testimony, and then we'll take questions. That's the extent of the witnesses on this bill. And so why don't we start with you, Chris Gabrielli.
Chris Gabrielli?
Yeah, calling from Boston, Harvard Graduate School of Education. So why don't you start, and you guys are going to be on the up to 2-minute clock, okay? So, Chris, why don't you start? Up to 2 minutes.
Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure to be invited to participate. Thank you, Chair Feldman and Vice Chair Kagan and others, and very much appreciate Senator Harris's support. I'm here to support SB 529. I am the chair of the Board of Higher Ed here in Massachusetts, a lecturer at Harvard at the Grad School of Education, and have the honor of serving as a strategic advisor to USM. Just a couple of really quick points from a national perspective. Number one, early college works. There's a lot of things we talk about in education. Very few of them have the level of evidence that early college has. It has randomized trials that show that low-income students who get early college opportunities while they're in high school with good supports are both significantly more likely to attend and graduate. And for all students, that they're significantly able to shorten the amount of time and expense. So here's something that definitely works, and which Maryland has many of the right starting blocks to build on, and a handful of great examples already. Second, teacher preparation is a great use case. It is not only Maryland that's looking at that. As a simple example, in New York, Governor Hochul included in this year's budget $2 million to drive teacher pathways on top of the $60 million that they invest in early college writ broadly. Similarly, here in Massachusetts, where I have a little bit of influence, we too have multiple teacher pathway early college efforts for the reasons that your panel brilliantly put together. Last thing I'd say to you is this kind of work needs state support, and that's why this bill is so important, but it only works if there are people on the ground eager and willing to do it. And to me, what really impresses me is how Southern Maryland's come together across the community college, the RHAC 4-year system, and the school districts with a common vision. Doesn't mean it'll be easy to get it done perfectly right off the bat, but that is the ingredients for an exciting success. And lastly, one that can be used throughout Maryland. So pioneering it in Southern Maryland is a great way to start. Spreading it, a great way to go. Thanks for the pleasure of getting the opportunity to join you.
Perfectly 2 minutes. That was very, very efficient. Okay, Mr. Smith, you're going to be the final witness on this, and then we'll take questions.
Thank you very much, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, members of the committee. I am Scott Smith. I'm the superintendent of St. Mary's County Public Schools, and I come before you today to voice support for Senate Bill 529 from all 3 Southern Maryland superintendents. That's Dr. Navarro in Charles County and Dr. Newsom in Calvert. In education, nothing is more valuable, more impactful than the classroom teacher. And as you've heard, we simply don't have enough. In St. Mary's County, in Calvert and Charles, we've all come to the unshakable conclusion that the solution to the crisis must come from us. We really have to grow our own. We have to build a regional, accessible, affordable pathway free of barriers that moves our students today to become teachers tomorrow. We also know that locally grown teachers are deeply connected to the community. They know our students, they know our schools, they know our staff, and more importantly, once they join us, they stay. In St. Mary's County, we're already taking steps to make this happen. This year, our Teacher Academy of Maryland students who've completed the program requirements by the end of their junior year enter a directed study senior year and enrolled directly in an early college pathway at the College of Southern Maryland. When they finish their senior year, they will have earned 26 college credits and be able to earn an associate's in the art of teaching within a year of leaving high school. They will have an affordable, solid start on their path to the classroom, all while staying in the Southern Maryland region. I urge you to read the testimony submitted by two students in this program, Riley Day and Laura Sebring, as their path is what we hope to replicate and expand across our three school systems. While we can create a pathway to get them to their AAT, we need to work on what comes next. How are we going to keep them in Southern Maryland when there is no local in-person option to earn a bachelor's degree? This is where the work of a group coming together, all stakeholders, can create something new, something that harnesses the technology of the 21st century without losing the human, in-person, face-to-face community that is the bedrock of education. That's why we support Senate Bill 529 and ask you for a favorable report.
Thank you, Superintendent Smith. We're going to now take questions. Vice Chair Kagan, you want to lead on?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is not a question, so thank you, Senator Harris. Thank you to the stellar, like serious A++ witnesses. Chris Gabrielli, one of my dearest friends is Jennifer Davis. I have heard your name for decades, and it's just so cool to see you, and I'm sorry we've never met in person. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Hey, we're going to go to Senator Carrozza next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Harris, thank you for this bill and for recognizing the teacher shortage. Obviously, you're focused in your area, but we know it's statewide. And my question actually is for Dr. Perman. As you well know, I have proud to represent 3 institutions of higher education with Salisbury University really excelling in teacher preparation. And the other beauty of my district is, you know, all 3 of our presidents down there work closely together. So 2 in the USM system and Dr. Casey at Warwick Community College. My question for you, because I thought I heard you kind of hint at it in your testimony, but do you see this as, I mean, I know this is specifically Southern Maryland focused, but do you see this as something that would be, you mentioned pilot, which kind of indicated that it might be something that leads to, you know, developing the program in other areas. So I just wanted your sense and your knowledge of, you know, of my district and how something like this, where again, the teacher shortage is everywhere.
Thank you, Senator. I so appreciate the question because the answer is absolutely yes. But of course, there are constraints. First of all, Mr. Gabrielli has been a wonderful consultant to us, demonstrating that, in fact, in Maryland, for all our vaunted strength in education, we are well behind with regard to early college offerings, college in high school for students. So we've got a long way to go, and that's why we prefer to take this pilot approach and demonstrate to our colleagues around the state and to you all that if you get kids into a pathway, hopefully in the 9th grade, if it were totally up to me, if you get kids into a pathway, whether it's teaching or healthcare or cyber or engineering, they have freedom to get off the path. Some will, but you have to start kids early. We want to demonstrate that that works for a critical need in Southern Maryland. And then, of course, I have to say, everything takes resources. But the intent is absolutely across the state. This kind of programming is desperately needed in Baltimore City, but it's also needed in Western Maryland. We have assets on the Eastern Shore. We can get started with that as long as we have the proof and the resources.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for any of our panelists or Senator Harris? Seeing none, that's going to conclude our bill hearing on Senate Bill 529. I want to thank everybody for their excellent testimony. Let's next move to Senate Bill 664. Senator Harris, we do have several witnesses signed up favorable. If you don't mind, I'll just call them up. Molly McGriff here. Okay, Molly. Christopher Cano, Ellie Colmers, Christina Push, and Randy Albertson.
Randy and Chris are actually testifying over in the House at the moment as we speak,
okay.
So I will be testifying on their behalf
Gotcha.
as well.
Okay. Senator Harris, you take the time you need to present Senate Bill 664.
Appreciate that, Mr. Chair. Chair Feldman, Vice Chair, members of this awesome EEE Committee. For the record, again, Senator Kevin M. Harris representing District 27, which includes Prince George's, Charles, and Calvert County, here to present Senate Bill 664, Child Care Scholarship Program Priority for Child Care Providers. Child care workers are the backbone of Maryland early childhood systems, yet they are among the lowest paid essential workers in the state. Median wages for child care educators remain far below the state self-sufficient standards, making it difficult for them to afford the very care they provide to other children. While child care workers cannot find or afford care for their own children, they reduce hours or leave the field entirely. Making this a priority for them for scholarships keep classrooms open, support employers' stability, and strengthen Maryland overall labor force I can't talk today. Every sector from healthcare to hospitality depends on a stable child care system. Supporting the workforce that makes the system possible is a high leverage investment. Senate Bill 664 requires the State Department of Education to establish a framework to prioritize the children of certain child care providers for scholarship under child care scholarship programs. This simple bill recognizes the essential role of child care providers and work towards stabilizing a workforce that Maryland families rely on every day. The state already verifies employment for child care workers through licensing and program records. Priorities can be implemented within existing child care scholarship processes, ensuring fast, equitable access without new bureaucracy. The child care workforce is overwhelmingly women of color, and immigrants, groups historically underpaid despite performing high-impact work. These groups and child care workers broadly report persistent turnover driven by low wages and unaffordable child care costs for their own kids. Ensuring child care workers can access affordable care for their own family reduces turnover, strengthens programs quality statewide, and helps support some of the state's most vulnerable residents. For this reason, I ask the committee for a favorable report on Senate Bill 664, and I will turn it over to my awesome panel.
Okay, why don't we start on this side of the table? We'll go down the table.
Me? All right. Good afternoon, Chairman, Vice Chairwoman, and members of the committee. I am Molly McGriff, Senior Director of United for Childcare with United Way of Central Maryland, here in support of Senate Bill 664. Maryland's Child Care Scholarship Program is essential for working families. Unfortunately, this program has been on partial enrollment freeze indefinitely due to funding constraints. The freeze is already having enormous effects on the childcare sector. Families cannot afford childcare without the Child Care Scholarship Program, and programs are unable to fill their slots. United Way of Central Maryland recently surveyed parents. We found that 83% had been late to work, and 62% faced career obstacles due to lack of childcare. The lower the family income, the more disruptions parents face, and the less likely they are to be able to afford necessities. 87% of parents reported that cost is the major factor in choosing childcare. One Maryland mom said, quote, "The downside is it's so expensive that I can't miss any days off work or have any extra funds for backup in case of illness or scheduled center closings. The guilt of being a working mom and being away from your child for long hours of the day is stressful enough, and with the cost of daycare in today's economy is unbearable." Another mom said, quote, "I decided to quit my job because the cost of quality childcare was too much." Of great concern is the effect on our childcare professionals, some of whom are parents themselves. Childcare lead teachers make less than $27,000 a year on average, and childcare center aides make less than $18,000 a year on average. Yet, full-time center-based care for an infant costs $22,000 a year on average. We are asking people who, clearly our educators cannot work without assistance paying for childcare for their own children, and we are asking people who cannot afford childcare to provide care for others. This contradiction undermines the entire system. We must prioritize eligible childcare professionals on the scholarship waitlist. Without scholarship, our educators cannot afford to work, risking the collapse of the entire system. The prioritization will not add additional costs to the program because these families are already eligible by existing criteria. We must simply bump them to the top of the list. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Colmers.
Hi, good afternoon. Ellie Colmers on behalf of the Maryland State Child Care Association, as well as Innovations in Education. Here in strong support of Senate Bill 664, and thank you so much, Senator, for bringing forward this critical and timely legislation. SB 664 recognizes a simple but essential truth. Childcare is the workforce behind the workforce. When we fail to support childcare providers, we weaken not only the childcare system, but Maryland's entire economy. Childcare professionals in our state are highly skilled and qualified, yet severely underpaid. According to a recent demographics report, average annual wages range from just under $18,000 for childcare aides, $27,000 for childcare teachers, and $31,000 for family childcare providers. The Maryland Comptroller has also confirmed that the education and credentials required in this field far exceed the compensation. As a result, many childcare providers already qualify for the childcare scholarships, but their children are not prioritized. We're already seeing the consequences with more than 5,100 families that are waiting for childcare assistance. The programs are struggling to remain open. Most childcare businesses already operate on razor-thin margins with less than 1% of revenue left after staffing costs. This is a practical and fiscally responsible solution. It doesn't expand eligibility or create a new program. It simply assures that people caring for Maryland's children can continue to do so by prioritizing access within the existing scholarship system. There's also already certain income levels with government or taking government assistance programs, as well as siblings of those who are already in the scholarship program. There's precedent for this. They already receive that. So we would ask for a favorable report and adding our child care workforce to the prioritization.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kano.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, you all have heard from me plenty today, so I'll be succinct. SEIU Local 500 represents the family child care providers here in the state of Maryland. These child care providers are essential to the stability of our state's early childhood education system, and many of them are facing a workforce crisis driven by low wages, limited benefits, and the rising cost of care for their own families. Many providers, despite working full-time caring for other people's children, are struggling to afford quality care for their own children. And this bill takes a meaningful and practical step to address this contradiction by prioritizing their children for the Child Care Scholarship Program. It recognizes a simple truth. We cannot recruit or retain a strong child care workforce if the workers themselves cannot access child care. And by establishing a framework in this bill, it directly supports workforce stability, reduces turnover, and strengthens continuity of care for Maryland's families. It doesn't create a new entitlement or undermine access for other eligible families. Instead, it ensures that the workers who make the very child care system we rely on as a state function are not left behind. This approach reflects fairness, common sense, and sound public policy. And for child care providers, many of whom who are women of color, this legislation also advances equity. It acknowledges their dual role as caregivers and parents and affirms their labor is valued by the state of Maryland. And we ask for a favorable report on behalf of these families of our members and child care providers.
Okay, questions for Senator Harris or the panel? Okay, seeing none, that's going to conclude the bill hearing on Senate Bill 664, which brings us to the 18th and final bill of the day, Senate Bill 928 from Senator Harris. Now, I'm going to call up your sponsor panels, Mickey Chandra, Betsy Tao, Olivia Dinger, and James Frank. Those are the 4 designated sponsor panelists, and we will take their testimony first, and there are additional witnesses signed up. Senator Harris, Senate Bill 928. It's all yours.
All righty. Here we go, y'all. This is the last one. Chair, Vice Chair, members of this great committee. For the record, once again, Senator Kevin M. Harris representing District 27, including Prince George's, Charles, and Calvert counties, here to present Senate Bill 928, the Maryland Phone-Free Schools Act. In the last several sessions, legislation has been introduced in a bipartisan fashion to limit phone usage in our schools, emphasizing just how important this issue is to families and constituents across Maryland. Senate Bill 928 requires every county board of education to adopt a bell-to-bell phone-free policy to assure phones are inaccessible to students during the school day. Senate Bill 928 also requires schools to implement network-level filtering so social media platforms cannot be accessed on school grounds during a set time. Right now, phones are seriously disrupting classroom activities. Nearly 95% of students report using their phones during class, many for an hour or more each day. This is a loss of instructional time, and it forces teachers to compete with notifications, group chats, and endless scrolling. This is not a fair fight. This isn't just about a device. It's about social media. These platforms are engineered to capture attention, to trigger emotional response, and to keep students hooked. And I'm sorry to say, in some cases, adults hooked as well. In too many cases, students are learning from a content feed instead of what's being taught in their classrooms. And the harm goes way beyond academics. In 2024, the U.S. Surgeon General warned that the excessive social media use is linked to a rise in anxiety, depression, and social isolation among young people. Some of the witnesses here today can speak firsthand to those impacts. Schools should be a place where students can focus, build real relationships, and feel supported. Amendments have been added to this bill to make it stronger, strengthening the language, removing 2 exceptions to ensure more enforceable policies, and add a clearer definition of social media so all major platforms are covered. At a time when Maryland is making historical investments in education, we cannot allow constant digital distraction to undermine that progress. Senate Bill 928 restores focus, supports teachers, and protects students' well-being. For this reason, I urge a favorable report on Senate Bill 928, the Maryland Phone-Free School Act. And I turn it over to my panel.
Okay, where do you want to start? Anybody in particular?
We start here and go 12.
Okay, you heard he's the sponsor. He can control that. So why don't you give us your name? You've got up to 2 minutes, and then we'll just go down the.
Alana Lerner. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, and thank you for the chance to testify today. My name is Alana Lerner, and I'm a Montgomery County mom of 3 young children. I'm a parent supporter of Distraction-Free Schools Maryland, joining over 1,000 Maryland parents eager for phone-free schools. And I'm a proud 3rd-generation educator with experience as a high school science teacher, after-school program lead, and career readiness instructor. I am testifying in favor of Senate Bill 928, the Maryland Phone-Free Schools Act. Maryland is one of only a handful of states without any legislation regarding phones and social media in school. Frankly, we are falling behind.
I thank Senator Harris and the bill's co-sponsors for their leadership in proposing a thorough bill to prohibit K-12 students from using personal devices during the entire instructional day. As a parent, I want school to be a place of social connection and learning, a safe haven for my kids to practice how to engage with peers in the real world. Sadly, a recent study showed that teens check their smartphones more than 100 times per day, with 97% reporting use during school hours. The future I want for my children cannot take place in device-distracted classrooms and quiet hallways filled with students staring at screens between classes. Currently, I serve as a career readiness instructor for a post-secondary workforce development program. I teach courses on professionalism to prepare 18 to 29-year-olds for an internship with our corporate partners. The most common feedback I hear from students' internship managers is that this generation, the one that grew up with unregulated phone use, needs to rebuild their interpersonal and soft skills. This bill is a critical opportunity to set our Maryland youth up for success, not only in this moment, but also for their future. I request a favorable report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to next witness.
Good afternoon. My name is Amanda Garrett. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. I'm the mother of 2 children in Baltimore County Public Schools, one in 4th grade and one entering kindergarten. I'm also a licensed clinical social worker working in adolescent mental health, and I represent a parent advocacy group called Catonsville Unplugged, whose mission is to change local social norms around child smartphone and social media use. I believe that everyone in this room has the same goal. We want Maryland students to learn well, think clearly, and reach their full potential. But research is increasingly clear that smartphones are not compatible with that goal. Even the mere presence of a phone reduces available cognitive capacity. Studies have found that when a phone is in a pocket, turned off, students perform worse on memory and reasoning tasks than when that phone is outside of the room. That is called the brain drain study. And distraction is actually not contained to the individual user. It's almost like secondhand smoke. Research shows that when one student checks a phone in class, students sitting nearby experience measurable declines in attention. So in my home, my children will not be receiving a smartphone until at least age 16 in lines with expert guidance. But even when my children do not carry phones, they will still sit in classrooms with their attention disrupted by those who do. This is why bell-to-bell inaccessible storage matters. If devices remain accessible during the school day, we are asking children in a neurologically sensitive stage to resist technology that is intentionally engineered to override self-control. Across the country, Maryland included, student achievement has trended downward since 2011. That same period coincides with the sharp rise in teen smartphone ownership, and that is not a coincidence, and nor do experts on the subject believe that that is a coincidence. I urge you to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Good afternoon. My name is Olivier Derninger, and I attend the 10th grade in Bethesda, Maryland. I'd like to first thank our lawmakers for taking the time to focus on Bill 928 and for hearing me speak. I have seen my generation spiral down around me, staring at their phones all the time. I rarely meet anyone my age who will introduce themselves, hold a conversation, or maintain eye contact, because all their time is spent with the phone instead of learning basic communication skills. This is no fault of their own, but the fault of the billionaires behind social media products, constantly paying experts to find more ways to keep young minds hooked as long as possible. This is not helped when, at school, these same addictive products are in students' pockets, ready to be whipped out at any time, while the child is meant to be learning. Even if the child tries to ignore the calls of their phone, they will eventually take it out anyways, and the teacher's voice will be muted to their ears. The teacher too may try to stop the student from using the phone. But it's not a teacher's job to be the phone police, and the child will find a way to go right back to scrolling anyway. I can't count the number of times I've witnessed a classmate ask to use the restroom, then not come back for almost half an hour. I know for a fact that they're going right back to watching reels, playing games, etc. I have many times walked into the restroom for its intended purpose, and there, sure enough, will be a high schooler, away from class, sitting, scrolling on their phone. I'd like you all to wonder for a moment how it came to this. How have we let these addictive products come into our schools and drag students down so far that they are sitting in restrooms watching their feed during the time they're supposed to be learning? I want to solve this problem. That is why I'm here today, to make you all aware of what is happening while kids have access to their phones during school. And I believe you all want better for us too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, why don't you?
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Betsy Tao, and I'm a parent with 2 kids in MCPS schools. I serve on our County Council of PTAs as the Technology Committee Chair, and I also lead Distraction Free Schools Maryland, which represents over 1,000 parents who support a strong phone bill like Senate Bill 928. Of all the education bills crossing your desk this session, this one is the most important. Our schools are no longer environments conducive to learning because of the distraction of technology in classrooms, starting with personal mobile devices. If we don't work to remove these distractions, the many investments we make in the classroom will be wasted. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine a middle schooler in Montgomery County, which currently has a full-day phone ban without a storage requirement. The student's smartphone sits in her pocket, buzzing with notifications. Next to her are classmates playing games and watching videos on their Chromebooks. Her teacher is standing in front of a giant screen filled with animated images. Is it any wonder our students are struggling on core subjects and show up at colleges less prepared than prior generations? There's a saying that kids need to learn how to manage their use of devices. This statement sounds reasonable, but it is a pernicious myth. Half of all adults admit to being addicted to their phones. Teenagers spend on average 6 to 8 hours a day on screens for entertainment, and the numbers are even higher for kids from low-income backgrounds. There's no such thing as digital balance because tech companies have spent billions of dollars to steal as much of our time as possible. Our kids never stood a chance. That's why Maryland students desperately need those 7 hours a day in school to be free from devices and free to learn. This bill moves us in the right direction. It requires personal devices to be stored and inaccessible to all students for the entire school day, with only limited exceptions. Bell-to-bell bans are becoming the norm across the country, and Maryland can't afford to be left behind. With the passage of this bill, Maryland would become a national leader on this issue. That's why I urge this committee to support this bill. Thank you so much.
We're going to start with some questions from the committee, and we're going to start with Senator Gallion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for bringing this bill, Senator. I was just trying to remember last year, there were multiple bills addressing a similar issue. I think there's broad consensus that, you know, the phones are a problem in that setting. I don't think there's much disagreement with that. Can you let us know, like, where did things kind of end last year? I think Senator Benson had one of the bills, like, passed unanimously, I believe. Did that bill not get all the way through? Is this one different? Can you just kind of bring us up to speed on where things ended last year with this subject?
Right, got it. So from a, since I was in the House, from a House point of view, I don't think we passed a bill out of the House. I think, and I'll tell you from a personal point of view, I personally wasn't even on board at the time when it came to banning cell phones in school, because I believe, you know, it was a safety issue. You know, they need to have their phones. And after a while, when I realized that, you know, even my nephew is having a issue focusing in school, and we noticed that his grades are dropping in school because he is constantly paying attention to his phone versus paying attention to the teachers, is where I actually was like, wait, wow, this is a real issue, and we really took a deeper dive in it. And I think people are catching on more and more focused on it this year. So I think that's probably why we got a little bit more traction on both sides of the aisle.
Senator, I just kind of looked this up. It looks like that bill went over the House, passed 140 to 0, and then it says review an original chamber, so it has to go. Yeah, well, I guess there was an amendment to change it or something.
To be honest with you, yeah, so they passed a bill that was different than what we sent. It came back at like 90th day at
okay,
not
just ran
10
out,
o'clock at night.
Ran out of time.
We ran out of time.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate your support.
Senator Watson.
Yeah, thank you for the bill. So we know what's going on in the state, and the Department of Education has said that each individual state can kind of do their own thing, and within the states, each local school board, under broad parameters, can put their constraints in place. Our country has the least restrictions in the world on phone use, where other countries have banned it outright during the day, right? And yes, we could take a huge lead on this. We have to just convince parents that and remind them there was a time where we didn't have cell phones, right. And if there's an emergency, call the school, right? Having served on the school board, I had to deal with that. The only question I'll have for you is that some pieces of instruction do require the use of cell phones, sometimes to take surveys real time, because unfortunately, a lot of our schools don't have enough Chromebooks for every student to be able to use technology in a very equitable way. And the default is almost every kid has a cell phone these days. And so just wanted to think about that, because what would be the impacts to those schools who actually utilize the phones for some instructional purpose is what we have to think about. I don't know what happens in each and every school. I'm sure there's some variability, but my understanding is that it is used in some of our schools. And you know, you and I will have a meeting with the superintendent later on today. We can ask him those specific questions to see how we can really get a strong bill out. And I agree with everything the panelists said. It's a constant distraction. It's like looking at Bridgerton. Once you look the first episode, you got to go all the way to the end. And, you know, and that goes for adults too. Right. So I thank you for the bill. And again, we probably had a half a dozen of these bills last year that we tried to get through. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. No, we appreciate that. Appreciate those thoughts and comments there. I think here's what I will say to that is, I think that's a total separate bill that we need to discuss if our schools are utilizing kids' personal cell phones for instructional purposes. That's a totally different bill, in my opinion. I think we should attack that totally differently. That should not be hindrance to this particular bill.
Okay. Any additional questions for this panel? Vice Chair Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Harris, for the bill, and thank you, witnesses. It says that there is an exemption, you know, that the report, the annual report with all the rules, so the parents have that on September 1 of each year. It's got emergency communication plans. If a child's phone is stored outside of the classroom, so it's not even turned off in their pocket, God forbid, but it has happened, including recently in my district. What happens when a student there's a shooting in the school, there's some disaster in the school or in the family outside the school? How would the student be able to communicate with the main office? What's the thought? How do we reassure our constituents that students can learn better, but the parents can access them?
Yeah, so great question, which is one of my main questions I had last year.
Yes.
When this concept came up. And you know, it was so interesting, someone said to me, it makes it so simple. What did we do 15, 20 years ago? Mm-hmm. I know when I was in high school, I did not have no cell phone. If there was an emergency, guess what? They called the school. Mm-hmm. If I had an emergency, the school called the parents. Mm-hmm. I don't think this hinders any safety features within schools. In my opinion, I think it may enhance it because you have one center location for information versus 100 calls being made. And in some cases, when emergencies are impacted in that area, you can't even get a call out anyway because of the signal the signal mask. So,
okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, thank you, Senator Harris, and to the panel. We do have additional witnesses, so I'm going to call them up. Is Amanda Garrett here?
That was me.
Oh, I apologize. I did call you. Well, I see. Let's see. I see Lauren Lamb back there. Why don't you come up? You guys are good. You can go back and listen to the rest of the testimony. Okay, I assume you're here. So Sean Johnson's not here, right? Okay. Okay, Elena Lerner.
That was me.
Oh, you know what? I just completely. It's Bill 18. Come on, give me some slack. Okay. Yeah, okay, I think we're good. We do have the virtual witnesses as well. Okay, why don't you pull them up too? Okay, Lauren, why don't you testify you're in favor? We'll pull up the two favorable virtual witnesses, and then there is one additional witnesses from the governor's office, so we have to take that. So Lauren, why don't you proceed?
Thank you, Chair Feldman. Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, members of the committee, thank you for your time today. I'm Lauren Lamb with the Maryland State Education Association, representing 76,000 public school educators across the state of Maryland. The need for cell phone policies is a unifying issue among educators. A poll of educators by the National Education Association found 90% support for policies banning the use of cell phones during teaching time. And it's no coincidence that 83% of educators report that their students are having a difficult time concentrating and completing assignments. We know that the mobile devices and many of the apps our students use daily are designed to be addictive, and this is not a challenge that students should be asked to overcome with sheer self-discipline. It is impractical and often ineffective to enforce cell phone bans on a classroom-by-classroom basis. So importantly, this bill would require countywide policies that include thoughtful exceptions for documented health or educational needs. We especially appreciate that this bill clearly states that these policies should be enforced by school administrators, not just individual educators, to create consistent school-wide norms around device use during the school day, from the starting bell to the dismissal bell. The regularly updated policies developed under this bill would include the input of the community, educators, students, and their families to ensure the policies are keeping pace with changing technology and local contexts. We ask the committee to issue a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lamb. Let's take our two virtual witnesses. Ms. Winthrop signed up favorable, and you're going to be on the up to 2-minute clock, okay?
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. My name is Anna Winthrop, and I have a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old in the Montgomery County Public Schools. I'm also an educator, and prior to moving to Montgomery County, I spent many years teaching at NYU, where I not only spent a great deal of time with my students, but I researched education systems, classroom engagement, and student well-being. And while there are many nuanced discussions to be had around the use of technology in schools, when it comes to phones in schools, the research is very clear. These devices, and especially the apps on them, are built to be stronger than us. They lead to lower academic outcomes and higher incidences of mental health issues. And the addictive nature of this type of technology makes it extremely challenging for students to focus and engage in school, even if the device is in a pocket or nearby or just on the desk or not turned on. But this has been mentioned already. This still has a psychological pull, so it's why it's so important that phones are kept in a safe and separate space throughout the entire school day. In my opinion, it is unjust to place the blame on students and teachers for the detrimental effects on these devices. I often liken it to giving kids drugs and then blaming them for becoming drug addicts. It's our responsibility to create a school environment where all children can thrive and also where teachers can thrive. This type of legislation is relatively easy to implement. It doesn't require a lot of additional funding or training. And to be honest, I was a bit shocked that Maryland was behind on this, but it is definitely not too late. And I urge the committee to pass this bill swiftly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Gupta, you're up next.
Thank you, Chairman. Too often, high schoolers are asked, do you support a bell-to-bell phone ban? The correct question to ask them is this: if none of your classmates had a phone during school, would you be okay without one? The answer is almost always yes. I'm Dr. Nidhi Gupta, pediatrician in Tennessee, screen time researcher, author, speaker, and mother. I will not repeat the research you already know about bell-to-bell phone-free day. The evidence on that is very clear. Simply the presence of smartphones and not even their use is enough to cause distraction. Today, I want to briefly address 4 questions that might arise before voting on this bill. 1, should phones be inaccessible all day? Absolutely. Even silent face-down phones or phones in pockets and backpacks fragment student attention. An average teen receives 237 notifications a day, mostly during school hours. If students are texting and scrolling during school, it is unrealistic to expect focus in class. Question 2, what about the cost of phone storage solutions? Simple storage solutions can be inexpensive, and the return on that investment is enormous, which is focused, engaged learners. 3, what about emergencies? Law enforcement is clear. Phone use during crisis increases chaos, spreads misinformation, and gets in the way of first responders. Last question. Don't students need to learn responsible phone use? Yes, eventually. Right now, their developing brain cannot resist addictive algorithms. Simply put, phones are social media is phones. Europe and Australia do not need convincing on this issue anymore. If we want to keep up with the rest of the world, we must do the same. To wrap up, a bell-to-bell phone-free day is not a restriction. It is a gift. It is a gift of connection, calm, and deep learning. I urge you to vote yes on this bill.
Okay, thank you. Okay, questions for Dr. Gupta, Ms. Winthrop, Ms. Lamb? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Thank you all for your testimony. We do have one final witness. Is Andrea Barnes here from the Governor's Office for Children? No? Okay, I don't think so. So that concludes the bill hearing on Senate Bill 928, and that concludes our work for today. Good job, guys. 18 bills, and we did it. And it's not even 5:30. Okay.